Meeting will come to order. Council agenda, Township of Parsippany, Troy Hills, Township Council agenda meeting on March 1st, 2016. The time is approximately 7:30 p.m.
Posting of the notice. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December 17, 2015, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on December 22, 2015, and the Newark Star Ledger on December 24, 2015, and was forwarded by fax to the local newspapers and local radio stations on December 17, 2015. Note, council meetings are videotaped and aired on Cablevision Public Access Channel 21 at 11 o'clock a.m. on Sundays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Flag salute. Mr. Creepy. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Carriffy?
Here.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Ms. Grignani?
Present.
Mr. Peluso?
Present.
Mr. Valori?
Here.
Other members present are Mayor James R. Barbario, Business Administrator Ellen Sandman, Township Attorney... Can you not hear me? Hello? Okay.
You're good.
Township Attorney John Inglesino, the CFO Ann Cucci, and Township Clerk Khaled Madden. Mr. President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, March 15, 2016, 7:30 p.m. will be our regular meeting. April 5th, 2016, at 7:30 p.m. will be the agenda meeting. Approval of the minutes, regular agenda minutes, February 16th, 2016. We will be followed by presentations. Mayor, would you like to start off?
Yeah, back in November, down at the League of Municipalities, Prosecutor Fred Knapp came up to speak about the ordinance Rapid. And I feel that this ordinance is very important, very good for the Township of Parsippany, Troy Hills, to do with pawn shops and direct and have certain types of data. So if, Prosecutor, you wouldn't mind presenting tonight, I would appreciate it.
I assume you want me at the microphone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening,
Welcome.
everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor indicated, we on? Okay. In November, we were invited to speak at the League of Municipalities Convention to talk about the heroin epidemic, not just in Morris County, but throughout New Jersey and the Northeast. And what I wanted to explain tonight is a tool that can be utilized in the battle that law enforcement has for the citizens of Morris County concerning burglary, which is related to the heroin epidemic. And very, very briefly, Rapid is a computer-based tool, and we'll hear from Detective Tom Joyner, who will explain in detail about it, along with Chief Assistant Prosecutor Brad Seabury from our Special Operations Division, how this is utilized. But what you may be aware of, and I know we have two retired law enforcement officers on our council, and others may be aware of this as well, the addiction problem, particularly with heroin, leads to an incredible amount of theft and burglary from the homes of our citizens. Myself, my own home was burglarized by a heroin addict shortly before, or just after I had started office in Morris County. And essentially what this tool will do is to assist law enforcement in tracing either secondhand jewelry sales or precious metal sales in pawn shops or in secondhand dealers in and around Morris County. The way that this will work is that a municipal ordinance needs to be adopted, which the mayor and I have discussed along with the township attorney, that would enable you to require secondhand sales to be governed by this ordinance, and would ensure identification of the people who are selling, who may be legitimate or may not be. Without further delay, I'd like to present Detective Tom Joyner, who does have a PowerPoint. I guess, Tom, you want to come here at the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Detective Tom Joyner with the Morris County Prosecutor's Office. I'm actually part of the intelligence unit at the office, and one of the things that we do is we look at burglary throughout the county. Also heroin. We look at trends and we try to figure out what's going on, not only in Morris County, but obviously throughout the state, to try to create some kind of law enforcement approach to this.
It may not be on.
I don't know if that.
You can take it out. You can take it out.
Is it? Hopefully it's on.
And just tap the top of that.
Just tap it.
Yeah, it's activated. Okay, you're good.
All right, is that good?
Great.
One of the things I'm going to talk about today are the legislative approaches to aid in the collection of secondhand jewelry. This has become known as the RAPID presentation, Regional Automated Property Information Database. Currently, right now, by doing something that we refer to as journey to crime analysis, we can look at New Jersey as a whole and kind of see that we have the urban areas, the residential areas, and almost the areas like today, the Parsippany area, where we're seeing a lot of property crime and heroin coming in from these urban areas. Heroin in the past, burglary in the past, used to be known more of as an urban epidemic. Now it's kind of expanded out to residential and more suburban areas, such as ourselves. In Morris County, there's really two trends of burglary that are going on. On the eastern part of Morris County, 80% of the arrested burglars live east of Morris County, meaning that they're coming from outside of the county. And that's because a lot of times when we do interviews, it's because Morris County has nice stuff. That's something that we hear all the time. On the western part of Morris County, we find that people generally burglarize their own neighborhoods. A lot of this is not necessarily because of nice stuff or people coming in from outside the county, but it's because of that drug addiction, that link between heroin and burglary. And just to give some of the numbers on this, 2013, 2014, in Parsippany, 2013, 78 residential burglaries, 93 in 2014. In Morris County in general, about 860 and 783 between the 2 years. And the number of burglaries per year that are cleared or the number that are closed out because of arrests are generally about 20%. And that's not something that's specific to Parsippany or Morris County. It's something that's trends nationwide. 20% is usually that closeout rate. So one of the reasons for RAPID is not necessarily just to try to identify who's selling the stuff, but one of the important things is try to get the jewelry back. The stuff that's being stolen, to try to go and recover it from these different stores. Again, just to look at that quick link between heroin and burglary, this is something that based off all of our interviews and a lot of stuff that we've done at the prosecutor's office, we've kind of seen what's going on. Where you have an individual who may start out with an addiction to recreational pills or prescription pills. From there, to kind of fuel that addiction, they start stealing from their parents. They're getting money, whether it's cash, jewelry. From there, you'll see a lot of shoplifting, boosting, and that's the point where they decide to start using heroin because the addiction is so strong and because the cost from a pill, about $55, down to heroin, about $3 to $5. From here, you'll see them start to steal from friends and family and kind of get comfortable with doing burglaries. And that's kind of the connection between this idea of heroin and burglary. So although RAPID is more for burglary, obviously there's a lot of heroin issues that are being driven as well. So what's our problem statement? The lack of legislative-driven reporting requirements regarding secondhand transactions and the lack of technology suitable to capture these transactions has created a comfortable environment for the trade and compensation of stolen property in the state of New Jersey. Briefly, we're going to go over a couple of the legislative approaches. One of the first ones that we actually came across was NJSA 5168-1, which is the precious metals. This is actually governed by the weights and measures. And this was one of the first things that actually required or allowed us to go into some of these jewelry stores and actually request to look at their receipts to try to figure out who's selling. This was really, we use this a lot, again, just to try to get an idea of who's selling jewelry and what they're selling. If the store isn't in compliant, it's a fine. $500 to $1,000. In May of 2010 and amended in 2014, New Jersey passed a statute 2C21-36, which focuses on the sale of secondhand jewelry. This actually requires these stores to verify the identity of the seller. They're required to describe the jewelry that's purchased, and one of the most important things for us was it required digital photography of this jewelry. We were getting a lot of places that would just take the jewelry, put it on a photocopier, and just hit copy, and we were getting black and white images. And you're not really able to tell serial numbers or distinct marks on the jewelry to, again, try to link it to the proper owner. They're also required to deliver a record of the jewelry each week. and they're supposed to maintain these receipts for 5 years. Penalties in this are consistent with receiving stolen property. If the store failed to comply with this new law, it was presumed that they were dealing and receiving stolen property. This does not apply to pawnbrokers. Pawnbrokers apply elsewhere. However, in Morris County right now, there's roughly 58 stores that are buying and selling jewelry. Of those 58, only 2 are pawnbrokers. So as far as collecting secondhand jewelry, what are we looking at? This is some of the stuff that we were getting. Just as a brief example, obviously some of the pedigree information was blacked out here for the presentation, but that on the right is a perfect example of the jewelry that's kind of just placed on top of a photocopier and copied. And some of the information wasn't necessarily accurate. This is another example of some of the stuff that we were getting where it's very generic, the information that's being sent. Car tools. Once that new law came out, one of the things that we did was we actually went around to the different stores and actually bought those gold plates for all the stores. We bought the black velvet trays that are behind it. And we kind of educated the stores on this new law, provided them with an example of the law. And the stores began taking the digital photographs, again, which was very important for us, because now we can see the actual item, we can see the ID, and we have the date and time that the item was stolen. Unfortunately, one of the issues with this, as you can see in this, is that there's actually a pendant behind there that you can't really see. So again, this was kind of helping the problem, but we still had the issue of trying to identify some of this jewelry simply by photographs. And again, one of the things with this, we would have to go around to all the different stores, and this was very labor intensive for the detectives. Not only here, but this instance is just Dover. But a lot of individuals who are selling this jewelry aren't necessarily staying local. They're not burglarizing a house and going to the store closest and selling it. They're kind of scouting out places for better pricing. So just to try to find jewelry would be maybe a week process for a single burglary, where we're going around to 58 stores here in Morris County, but in addition going outside the county as well, just trying to search for all this jewelry. So a lot of this data was being manually put in by the detectives. And this is a spreadsheet that we actually started coming up with about some of the stuff. So we would actually sit down, look at these photographs, and actually create a spreadsheet, manually typing it in, which again was very, very labor intensive for the detectives. This is why Rapid hopes to change some of this. Again, the Regional Automated Property Information Database. What's so important about this is that idea of regional. With these spreadsheets, that was something that was generally kept internally. So if one town was doing it, they would maybe send out the spreadsheets. Some towns would receive it, some wouldn't. As far as this, it's one central database, and right now Delaware and Maryland have a state law that requires every municipality in the state to report to Rapid. And in addition, Rapid is actually in every state other than Texas right now. So as long as once you have access to the Rapid system, you have access to the data in every single one of those states. And it's being shared real time. Automated, Rapid requires that the store enter the jewelry into the database, or that transaction into the database, within 24 hours of actually buying it. This allows the detective, versus going around and searching for jewelry, to now just look at that database and run a quick query for either a person's name, a type of jewelry, a serial number, any of these kind of distinct ideas. In order to get Rapid, or in order to have access to Rapid, the local ordinance needs to be passed. And the first thing that I think is the most important in that local ordinance is we don't write in there that we're looking to get Rapid. The local ordinance specifically says a database approved by the chief of police for that town. If for whatever reason Rapid a year from now doesn't exist, it allows the chief to choose which program he's going to use. In addition, there's a $250 fee per store per year. Again, the ordinance will dictate how that fee is being paid. One of the requirements, report by noon of the next business day. It also requires you to upload the photo of the seller at the time of the sale. So if an individual walks into a store and sells that, you're taking a photo of him there. This way, if later on there's a description of him, I know that the individual is wearing a very specific sweatshirt. Now we can look at that photo and actually help identify. He sold this piece of jewelry, which was stolen out of this house, while wearing this. Input any serial numbers or engravings. This is something where we're getting, whether it's a Rolex watch that has a serial number, that stuff is kind of being missed. It's not necessarily being put into a database. This helps us, if that serial number is reported, This allows us to actually go and search that database for that specific serial number. Capture a phone number of a seller. The ordinance can also limit the number of transactions. Anything that you guys can think of in an ordinance can be enacted. These are just some of the template ideas that are currently out there. Because right now there's about 80 municipalities in New Jersey that currently have an ordinance for rapid. Again, just going over some of the quick benefits. It's linked to NCIC. Again, this just goes to the idea if an item is stolen and it's reported to the police, by entering it into rapid, those two databases will communicate and let that local police department know, hey, this item is reported stolen. You might want to look into it, just as a quick lead. A phone number search. With the ordinance, if you're putting in phone numbers, now you have an additional database to start searching phone numbers to kind of help out law enforcement. Another thing is that rapid is linked to the sex offender registry. If there's an individual who is a sex offender who's selling jewelry, who may not have who uses an address that's not listed or not an approved address, it'll notify that law enforcement agency that there's an individual using an address in your town where he's not supposed to be living. And there's a very robust search feature. It's linked to Craigslist, eBay, the internet. We can set up address alerts. If we know that, if we think or we suspect one individual of burglarizing a residence, but we know that his brother or his girlfriend or his sister are the ones that generally sell, we can make an alert on that address that says, anybody who sells from this address, let us know. Because again, that may help us link to the actual suspect rather than just looking at one individual. Again, with associates, if multiple people are listing addresses, sharing phone numbers, this will tell us. Near hits, this gets us around entering serial numbers. Sometimes serial numbers are entered incorrectly into a database. This will tell you that the iPad or the tablet with this serial number may not match something currently in the database, but here's something that's very close. Is this what you're looking for? And again, the statewide and the nationwide reporting, every state right now except Texas is currently using Rapid. Just a couple quick screenshots. This is what a detective can look at from the reporting end. This right here is every day you can go on, and every column right here represents a different day. So if you're looking across at a GameStop and you see that they report roughly 25 transactions a day, and they have a couple days that are 0, now you can at least visit the store and ask what's going on and try to figure out if they are in compliance or if they're not in compliance. So this just gives you a rough idea of the amount of transactions that are going on in an area. We could also run a quick store report. We can look and say, tell me who's selling over the last 7 days at any store in your area. And this will actually come up with the customer name, which is blacked out, what they sold, how much they purchased or how much they received, and the date that they sold it on. Again, we could also run what we know. When Rapid was developed, they referred to it as a pawner. In New Jersey, pawning is something different, but that's just the language that Rapid uses. For us, this is just transactions. So we can run and look at, in this case, the last 10 days, who's selling the most amount of property. From here, the count on the top 13, the one individual 7. And if you look at some of the transactions over $1,000 at the top, by clicking on any one of these, again, this gives us the ID of the individual who sold it, the actual item that was sold, description of the individual. This one on the bottom, I believe this is Atlantic City, actually requires a thumbprint at every transaction. And here's just a couple. Right now, this is big in Ocean County. They're really the first county to start using Rapid in New Jersey. Right now, it's really big in South Jersey, and it's kind of working its way up into Morris County and further above. I mean, at this point, are there any questions?
I have a couple of questions. The computerized software, where does that come from? Does it come from the prosecutor's office, or is it something that we have to hire a separate company to create the software?
It's owned by a company, I believe it's called BWI,
Okay.
Rapid. The $250 fee per year per store covers any and all maintenance fees, and that. So after the ordinance is passed and they get their money, they'll actually come. It's all web-based.
Okay.
They'll come. They'll do all the training. They'll set everybody up as far as the store end, the law enforcement end. and they'll make sure that all the connections are there.
And how long is the data kept on the service itself
That I'm
once
not.
it's input?
Yeah, that I'm not too sure. I know in here we have transactions from 2000. I think with this 2009 and 2010.
Okay, so
that we
there's
were searching.
There's
So
a long shelf life to
Yes.
the information that's input.
correct.
And who checks the equipment at the dealer or the store or the pawn shop to ensure that they remain in compliance? Would that be our police department?
Yes.
From past
Yes.
experience?
Yes. Law enforcement would be in charge of that, and that's that one screen. If I just go back. This screen right here would kind of help with that compliance. So every day, this just happens to be every store, but you can actually look at, say, just Parsippany, and just give me all the Parsippany stores in the last 7 days, and look at the number and kind of see which stores are currently reporting, and if there's any zeros. The zeros obviously mean that there's some kind of issue, whether not reporting or there's a data connection missing somewhere.
Thank you.
Just I'll use your time. I'll be brief. My name is Brad Seabury. I'm a chief assistant prosecutor, and I work with Tom. And I think one of the biggest points that you can walk away from this presentation is that this is another tool that law enforcement can use. It's an electronic tool as really a force multiplier. Right now, this data is already required to be captured by the state statute. However, it's inaccessible. We have attempted as a prosecutor's office and as individual municipalities to go out to the sellers and to obtain it, the paper data, and then try to look through this to solve crime. And it worked for a little bit of time, but then it became simply impossible for police departments to go out and do this. You'd have detective bureaus basically consumed going through all of this paper data. Well, what this tool does is allows us to very quickly solve crime. The same thing that we are already able to do on the paper side, but you'd have to devote significant man hours to do. So that's why I refer to it as a force multiplier. It's an important tool to really combat our burglary problem. And as you could see by those numbers, it is the highest index crime in the county, burglary is. And you see that you're solving around 20%, and that's a national statistic. This is good hard work that we know our police officers do. Well, why not give them another tool to be able to bring that 20% rate up a little bit higher, and also get this stolen property back to the victim. It's really this is in support of the victim as well. So if there's no other questions, I won't duplicate anything that Tom said and use up any of your more time, but we would like to have any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very good.
Are you gonna do a build-up with the Board of Education here? You're gonna do a build-up?
Yeah.
Renting it going.
Thank you.
Mr. Knapp, thank you for bringing your staff here and being very informative with us. And whatever we could do to assist you and your agency.
We did provide the township attorney with a model ordinance for your consideration. If you would adopt the ordinance, we can start the ball rolling
Absolutely.
on this, and that's what we're here for.
And thank you again for
Okay,
everything,
thank
sir.
you, gentlemen
Thank
and
you.
ladies
Thank you.
as well.
Thank
Good
you,
to
sir.
see
Bye.
you all.
If I may just state for the record, I've had conversations with Prosecutor Knapp and other people from the prosecutor's office and law enforcement throughout the county. This is definitely a program that we need here in
No,
Parsippany.
absolutely.
Definitely. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Very good.
Okay, put the lights on. Put those lights back on.
Mayor, you're up in the batter's box again. I think he's good.
Can you hear me? All right. First of all, Council President, thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss the SROs. Just briefly, this is a brief history. Since I've been mayor, I've been wanting to do this project with the schools. The manpower was low. You know, we had budget cuts. We had a 2% cap, so we could never really get to it. But a lot of things have happened over the years. Sandy Hook is one of them. And as you know, you got these active shooters that are going around. And I felt, as a mayor, Parsippany could no longer afford to take the risks. So I had a few appointments, which I'm going to introduce tonight. First of all, the superintendent of schools, Dr. Seitz. President of the Board of Education, Frank Neglia, Vice President of the Board of Education, Andy Chaffo, and the former president, who I've dealt with a lot on this matter, Fran Orthwine. I just felt it was so important that we participate as a partnership with the schools on school resource officers. But it's a lot more complicated than that. Prior to Dr. Seitz coming back, and Dr. Seitz, I have to thank you. When we met last month, he was all, it was great. I was kind of nervous because, you came back. I don't know how you were going to come back, all angry, who knows, but but he was on board. He understood. He got it. Our kids are valuable to us. And it's not just an school resource officers that we want to do in town. We also want to have a juvenile, not detective, a juvenile counselor.
Yes.
And I spoke to Councilman DePiero last year about it, and the Councilman Lotta Graniani. Now, I have to thank you, Council President Valori. You've really come on board. Councilman Valori has really, him and I, we talked about this issue, how important it is to Parsippany, but more important, how important it is for our kids. So I want to thank you for your your dedication and working with me on this.
And not only do I want to thank you, Mayor, of obviously the
Right.
school board and the other council members. And one thing I take to heart was when I was on the Board of Ed with actually all the members there, and I had definitely some fond memories of working with Dr. Seitz also. My daughter happened to be at Virginia Tech attending there when that shooting occurred. And unfortunately, she lost friends there. And if she didn't sleep through her class, she would have been in that building. And when I went on to the Board of Ed, that was a priority to me for the Board of Ed at the time, where Dr. Seitz and obviously some of those board members sitting there right now were instrumental of pushing for the security systems in the school system for the 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, working on the infrastructure for the grammar schools. And this was something that was in their minds even back then. So I want to thank them for their dedication,
Absolutely.
and you also for trying to provide the best secure place for our kids.
And there's a lot more we want to do, but I'm going to let the Deputy Chief Bantina explain that. But I have to go back to one little story here. Prior to Dr. Seitz, the former Board of Education superintendent, myself, Ellen, we met with him, and we were a little upset because he was considering of removing the school resource officers in the schools. Now, parents called me up upset because they understood the value of those officers. It's not just a police officer; it's someone that's in there to talk to these kids, to help them out. We realized that, and we negotiated a deal, and we got a contract with the school board. But Dr. Seitz and the school board members that are here tonight, they're dedicated to this, and I think it's advantageous for us as a municipality and a school board to show the rest of the county, if not the state, how it's going to get done. So, with further ado, I'd like to invite up Deputy Chief Bantina.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Chief.
The mayor's right on point. This is something that he's been dealing with and talking about for a long time. As you all know, our manpower was down to about 89 at one point, and that's a testament to you guys up on the council and the mayor getting it back up to the 101, where we
Yes.
could work on proactively and do some stuff that we need to do.
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank Dr. Seitz also and the Board of Ed members that are here. It's very unusual. I've been a police officer for 30 years when the 3 different groups can get along and actually get stuff done without arguing, and so it was a treat from our end. Just have a little couple slides here. I just wanted to start. The original SRO started in 2002. The 2 original officers were in the high school were Officer Bonavita Cola and Officer Salito. And it shows how much they thought about the community and about the children in the community, because they still work. One's at the PAL and the other one's back in the schools working as a security officer. So it shows you that they don't do it just for the position or the weekends off or anything like that. It's really because they really care about the community. The 2 new people that we have there now, well, they've been there for years, are Detective Lenahan and Detective Ortiz. We hear nothing but positive things about them coming back. I'll be at football games or basketball games, and that's the first thing when they hear that I'm the deputy chief or an officer. The first thing they say is, hey, you know Detective Bobby or Detective Gloria? So they're not too interested in my position. They're very interested in those, you know, those people. So here are some of the positive things that the SROs that we hear. Positive feedback from the district which is obvious because we want to add some more. SROs have made a positive impact on students and have become a genuine part of the school community. You could go down there any day of the week and just see the interaction, you know, between the officer and the students. It's really amazing. They have open lines of communication between the district and the police department, which is very convenient for us. We don't have to, you know, that call doesn't have to come from the school to the police department to the desk or anything like that. We get the calls right from the officers. They handle what they can right there, and then they let us know through the chain of command, you know, what actions they're taking or what actions they think we need to take. Police investigations not directly related to the schools have been advanced with the information provided by the SROs. You don't know how many times, you know, just juvenile stuff that might happen around mischief night or, you know, mailboxes being broken. The first thing we do is, you know, police officers in our department and the detective bureau, they go right to the SROs and they say, hey, we've had a couple of, you know, mailboxes broken or eggs were thrown, and they get right, they find out who's doing it, and then we handle it appropriately. Now, under the new agreement, we're looking to add 2 additional SROs to the lower schools. So we have to still come to a conclusion on where they're going to be housed, most likely the middle schools, but they would be handling the schools underneath the high school. So the 12 other schools to be split into 2. Good. The middle schools, the 2 middle schools, and then the additional 5 grammar schools. And, you know, they'll be floating around from school to school, but they'll be housed in most likely middle school. Yeah, there we go. And they'll be housed at the middle school, and they'll be working with the officers that are in the high school also. The other thing that, this is really the big part of it. This is the part that I don't think anybody else has in the state of New Jersey, is a school director, so a director of district and school security that is actually a police officer. Everybody else hires from outside, whether it's an ex-cop or somebody in the security field. This will have the police department directly responsible for the security of the children and the school district, which is really, it's amazing. It would be a lieutenant or somebody of a higher rank that would deal with his end on the police department and also with the superintendent of the schools. He'd be available 24/7 through phone, cell phone, text, and any overtime issues that are made are going to be minimal, because that would only be if the officer was on the scene. So that stuff would be minimal. What are the duties of the SRO and the Director of School Security? Here's just some of the duties, and this is not everything of the SRO that they're handling now. Provide school security. He'd respond to security threats. He handles the criminal investigations, not amongst the school administratively, but criminal, just the criminal investigations. He'd assist in providing for a safe learning environment, assist with student conflicts, coordinate emergency response for fire and EMS. So whenever we have an issue with a fire alarm or somebody's injured, they would be the point guy for that. Assist in monthly fire and lockdown drills, maintain an awareness of drug trends and activities. That's a big part. I mean, as we all know, most of us have children that are in that area. Very important in the schools, the drugs. Family juvenile crisis response, maintain records, be a positive role model. They also do some teaching when it's appropriate through the superintendent or whoever the principal is. They would handle safety and security programs as requested by the superintendent, and also provide information regarding the following: bullying, harassment, very popular right now. Social media and cyberbullying, that's the way of the future. I mean, you know, these kids with the cell phones and taking photos, they need to know the ramifications or the punishments that are going to happen if they deal and stuff like that. Weapons possession and response, drug and alcohol awareness programs, and defensive driver instruction, which they have been doing for years. The duties of the director, I'm going to have Lieutenant Dowd come up and speak about that. Lieutenant Dowd's been an officer with the police department for about 19 years now. He was previously, before being back in patrol, he was acting commander of the Detective Bureau. He was a lieutenant in the Detective Bureau and also a sergeant in the Detective Bureau. And while he was there, he worked directly with the SROs. He's very up on, all the duties of the director.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Thank you for having us. Okay, again, I'm Lieutenant Dowd, and can everybody hear me back there? Is this working fine? Great, thank you. I just want to say a couple words about the reasons for the SRO program and the need to improve upon the SRO program and the effects that it's had over the course of a couple decades now nationwide, but specifically for Parsippany for the past 14 or 15 years. For students to succeed, they need to go to school and they need to know that they have a safe and secure learning environment, an environment where they feel comfortable, because learning can't happen, it can't start until those are fulfilled. It's a hierarchy of needs. It just doesn't happen. Learning's not going to take place. Students who are victimized or who don't feel safe in schools will quite often feel weak or prone to learning disabilities, unable to do anything about their situation. There's been a study done back in 2011. There are not many studies since then. They seem to all have come out in 2011, one or two in 2012. Indicates that 5% of students nationwide have carried a weapon to school at least on one occasion. 6% didn't go to school. They skipped school altogether because they did not feel safe going to school. We have 7% that felt threatened or were threatened with violence, 12% who were actually in a physical fight, and 20% who were bullied. Now, educators and law enforcement saw this as a problem years ago. They got together, they collaborated, came up with a program, the SRO program. And the good news is that some of these problems have come down in numbers, specifically threats and violence within the school, not addressing the outside threats, but from within the school, and theft, which is actually a very big problem in schools these days. And that was as a direct result of this program being implemented. I was just speaking to one of our SROs, Detective Lenahan, the other day, and he said that there has not been one physical altercation in the school up until this point. And that's pretty impressive because we're already halfway through the school year. So that's a testament to the good work that the SROs are doing. So let me move on and describe some of the duties of the director. I'm going to call it the DDSS. First and foremost, the responsibility is going to be oversee and supervise the district's SROs and SSOs. The SSOs are the school security officers, and any elementary school security personnel. Student conduct management, that's going to be to review annually student handbooks and policies and procedures related to student behavior to see if there's trends or anything that's changing that may need to be adjusted to better work for the schools. Community and parent engagement, that's big. We want the community involved. The community certainly is impacted by student behavior because student behavior carries beyond the schoolyard and beyond the school day, as everybody knows. So if there's any community issues, if anyone has any concerns, the DDSS, that's going to be the person to go to, and they're going to help out with that. Parent engagement, parents have to be involved. If there's students with behavioral issues, we need parent involvement. Our SROs are great at sitting down and having meetings and discussing these issues with parents, and there's been a lot of success. The DDSS is going to establish a system of proactive intervention for students with chronic issues. We're going to look and see what we can do, what programs are going to be useful in helping kids with problems. open up the lines of communications again with parents and guardians. To a minor extent, develop some budget recommendations. At some point, there may or may not be a need for some funding for the project. Maintain records. That's going to be big. Records have to be maintained, especially when it comes to juveniles. We need a very good record-keeping system, which is going to be something that the DDSS will work on immediately. And, of course, to publicize to the community at large what's available to them now, so they understand that this is out there. This is an initiative. It's a program that's going to benefit them as well as the students. Campus security coordination. So aside from what has really become big lately is the anti-bullying and the harassment issue, it's very big for the kids. Again, you cannot learn if you're in an environment where you feel bullied or harassed. But we also have the external threats. We all know, it was already mentioned, Connecticut, Sandy Hook, terrible. Just yesterday in Madison, Ohio, there was a shooting. A 14-year-old freshman at the high school shot 2 students in a cafeteria. They both lived, but the indication is that this is a child that was bullied and harassed. So if we can prevent that, if we can do anything to mitigate the harm that bullying and harassing does to a child, in the end, it may result in saving a life, or maybe many. Going to coordinate and develop district-wide policies. This is going to be one of the first things that need to be done, since it'll be relatively new with the expansion of the program. Policies are going to need to be put in place. And serve as a liaison, of course, between local, county, and state agencies. Crisis management coordination. This is, you're setting up a command post for a major incident. Knowing how to do that by having protocols put in place, knowing your protocols, and making sure that these protocols are made available to everybody. We need to make sure that not only the SROs are aware, but also the teachers, the administrators, and the students themselves. And fire and EMS, all the stakeholders involved. Again, the DDSS is going to establish, not necessarily establish because it is established already, but coordinate between the schools and the police department, the in furtherance of the anti-bullying program. Serve as a chairperson of the district-wide Safe Schools Committee. Identify resources. This is big. It's good to reach out and seek help from others. It's good to have, a good Rolodex of people you can reach out to who, if you need something, they can help you out with and get it done. Provide accurate and timely public information to parents and the community. It's very important. We've had several incidents over the past year or two where the high school is either in lockdown or sheltered in place or evacuated to another school, and the phones go crazy. The parents, today the cell phones, everybody knows, the parents know immediately. And so then they're calling the school. They're calling the township here. They're calling the police department. They want information, and they deserve it. And sometimes it's tough to get it in and reel it all in and give them the information without giving them inaccurate information. Give them the information they need that's going to put them at ease and make them understand what's going on. So that's very important, and that's going to be one of the major responsibilities of the DDSS. Provide appropriate parent workshops. Get parents involved. Again, it's very important. Teach them and educate them on bullying and harassment. Many parents have a misunderstanding of what bullying and the harassment, intimidation, bullying law actually says. There's a distinction between the two, and a lot of times they're confused. They think that something is a HIP violation when in fact it's not. And these are things that the DDSS, in coordination with the schools, can work on to provide education to the parents so that there's no confusion or misunderstanding. Now, the DDSS also will serve most likely as a police lieutenant. And while performing these duties, he or she will be responsible for the daily operations of not only coordinating the DDSS position, but also the juvenile section of the investigative division of the police department, and carry out all the duties and responsibilities that are required of us through state law, regulation, and also, again, act as a supervisor for the juvenile detectives and the youth counselor. So that should wrap up, I believe, all the responsibilities. So the need for improvement. This, I think, the second to last slide, I think we're at. 7,200 students approximately in Parsippany, 14 schools dispersed throughout the township could benefit from this enhanced security. The growing concern over potential school violence and attacks nationwide is causing us some concern. 10 years ago, I know it's a while, it's a decade ago, but what's very concerning is there was a raid in Iraq, and in one of the houses, they discovered a computer disk with information and floor plans of school districts within 8 states in the United States, New Jersey being one of them. And New Jersey had 3 school districts that had plans and their security was breached. That's alarming. And we know that they're very methodical and they take their time. So despite the fact that it was 10 years ago, these are things that we need to think of. And again, that's one component. This is a holistic, programmatic approach to school safety and security. Rise of safety issues from within the school environment. Drugs, very big. They're not going away anytime soon, and they keep evolving. And we want to keep our kids safe in school, and part of that is making kids aware of the drug issue. And included with that internal safety is, again, cyber safety. And the kids need to understand the implications and the ramifications of improperly using social media. It's something that's going to stick with them for the rest of their lives if they make a mistake. And it's unfortunate. They're young. They make mistakes, but it's a permanent mark, and it's something that it'll always be there. So education in that area is very important. The rapidly changing the drug trend, I want to just say one thing about that. One of the things that's very alarming is that these kids can now, you have synthetic marijuana. So you don't need to smoke a marijuana cigarette anymore. Now you can get vapes. And everybody thinks that it's just nicotine that's going through that vape. But in fact, there are now additives that can be injected into these devices. And the process used to make these vapes into a drug is very scary. They're happening in labs in inner cities, quite often in rundown apartment buildings that are not clean, they're dirty, and there's a lot of mixing of different additives, chemicals, very dangerous, and these kids have no idea at all. And it's very accessible. And in fact, some kids can actually make it themselves. So we need to keep moving forward with drug awareness. It's very important. Currently, there are only 2 SROs who assist in their respective middle schools. When the middle schools need help, the SRO has to leave the high school and help them at the middle school. It doesn't happen too often, but it takes them away from the high school. So it would be nice, it would be very advantageous to have 2 additional SROs in the 9 elementary schools. We'll have 4 across the board. It'll be, everybody can dedicate their services toward their school. The improvement of the SRO program and its complexities require the oversight and management administration, and therefore benefit greatly with the addition of the DDSS. The intangibles, and I'll wrap it up by saying this. Like I said, I was talking to Detective Lenihan the other day. I sit with him he's very busy. Maybe I can sit with him for 10 minutes tops. And it's amazing to me the amount of kids that come past his door will stop and they talk to him and they love him. It's amazing. They'll give him any information that he needs or wants, and they gladly give it up. And if I'm not there, they'll sit down if they have the time, and they'll talk to him, and he'll listen, and they love it. It's Father Lenihan. That's what we call him, Father Bob. And they love him, and it's such a great resource. It is an intangible. We have a whole bunch of stuff that's outlined here that we can do or we need to do. These are things you can't put down in writing. It's so beneficial, and it's good for the kids. It's a great program, and I'm very excited about it. And I look forward to hopefully it going through. And thank you so much for your time, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Yep.
Any questions up here of the chief?
Questions, please.
Do you guys need to talk about?
Any questions, gentlemen?
I do have some questions. I think the SRO program is a great program. That's why I was in favor of it originally when it was presented to us on council a couple years back. My concern is that we should have an officer in every school what happens to the 10 elementary schools that we have right now? Because I firmly believe that every child should be treated equally and should be equally protected. And that's one of the reasons why we just closed the schools during the voting sessions as well, because of the elementary concerns that we had. Can you address that for me, please?
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, as we have now the 2 officers in the high schools, this would put 2 officers in the lower schools, but they would handle all of the, from the middle schools down. As much as I would love to have an officer, and I think it would be great to have an officer, we just do not have the manpower right now to do it. And that's as plain as I can be.
Why don't we look towards the New Jersey Task Force initiative that Governor Christie had recommended? We have a combination of civilians and SRO officers that we can get these 10 schools covered.
Well, that's also something that's coming down the line. I know there's
I can explain that.
bill, and the mayor
First
could
of
go into
all, the goal isn't to put security guards in the schools. The goal is to put professionals in the schools. There's a bill out right now in the state, Class 3 police officers, who would be, or retired police officers who have the experience and will be trained to be SROs. The bill passed, I think, in the Senate, but it still has some work that has to be done on it. First, that'll make it cost effective, and the other thing is that they are trained to be SROs. That is their only duty to be, is an SRO. So we've discussed it with the police department. I've discussed it with the council president and with the school board members, that if this passes, that could be exactly how we could cover all
Absolutely.
those schools.
Yes.
And that would be fantastic. I mean, that would be ideal to have someone that we have control over in every school.
Yeah,
That would be
because
ideal.
if you look at Newtown, Connecticut, it was 30 children. It was an elementary school. It wasn't central or high. But every child should be treated equally and equally given the opportunity to have that father officer that they can go to and talk with them. And, one of the things that I was on for a number of years was the Municipal Alliance Committee against drugs and addictions for our children and the safety of our children. And, I firmly believe that we still should also, the school board is here, so I'll tell you as well, welcome to Parsippany in our council meeting. But we should really have a Crime Stoppers program for the school system in which parents can actually call in, or children can call in anonymously and be congratulated and thanked for the information they receive, because it's not often that, a parent is not calling in because they don't want to be targeted. We had a roundtable discussion with the Municipal Alliance Committee several years back.
I was at the table with you.
Yes, you were.
That one I
And
remember.
I'm glad you remember that conversation, because I did ask for that to be put in place, a toll-free number for the parents, because if you recall at the table, the parents were reluctant, and they said, we know who the person is selling drugs. We know who the troublemakers are. And we both had said at the time, why don't you tell us so we can resolve the problem? And they said, we don't want to get involved. We're afraid of retaliation.
Right.
So we had a toll-free number in place that they can call, just like Crime Stoppers for the Sheriff's Department. I think it would do a lot of justice for
And
our
that,
school
and
system.
that would be part of what the director would be handling.
Absolutely,
He'd
yeah.
be implementing these programs, because he would be dedicated to that. That's
Well, what
all
we-
he's going to
what-
be thinking about.
what we're doing
Even in
with
the
the-
summertime,
Okay.
when the school's out, he's going to be part of, trying to make it better for the next year, and implementing new plans, and looking around, seeing what other school districts are doing. They might have paid security officers, but there's no reason why we can't cheat and look at what other people are doing.
Absolutely.
And get it done that way.
And what we're trying to do with the Municipal Alliance Committee, which we've had discussions at the last, not the last meeting, the meeting before that, and I've discussed it with the school board as well with Councilman Lloyd and Councilman Michael DePiero, the fact that we are going to try to see if we can use some of the funding, because, you still have to have funding to do the things that you want to do, to have assemblies in the schools, to teach, to have the actual professional individuals to come and do the programs in assembly at the middle schools. Anti-bullying, we contacted a guy already, drug awareness. So and also we coordinated, I coordinated with the undersheriff, William Chavella, who's now part of the lead, law enforcement against drugs. I spoke to him just last week. We did a TV show together with regards to what we're doing in town. And I got to tell you, he's pretty excited. And we're going to have a lot of hands out there trying to help out Parsippany, because the county wants to see it succeed. And I also was told an FBI agent wants to see it succeed. And when he heard that, what we were trying to do, he was excited, saying, listen, this is great what Parsippany's doing. Now, the Municipal Alliance Committee we have to see what kind of role they can really take, because they get funding based on what the county and the state says, and those are the types of initiatives. But we're going to try to extend as much as we can out to the schools, and of course we have to coordinate with the superintendent of schools.
Right.
Rich, can you do us a kindness? It sounds like it's on. With regard to, I know funding is always important. I know it's about the children and about the security, but
Right.
it's truly a shared service, a shared thing, and there's also funding coming from the school.
Right.
Can you just describe that so that
Sure.
the council and the public recognizes that it's not, it's together we're doing
Sure.
this.
So under the agreement, under the original agreement with the SROs, we were given from the Board of Ed $50,000 apiece. So that's $100,000 for the two SROs. Under this agreement, we're going to be doing similar. The extra two SROs are going to get an extra $50,000 each, and the director is going to be paid half of a lieutenant's salary, which is roughly $75,000. I'm not sure if it's 70 or 75,000. So it is definitely shared when it comes to the monetary. So you're talking $270,000 a year for the officers that are working in the schools.
And I thought that was important to
Absolutely.
share
Definitely,
because
definitely important. And another important thing is the thing that we discussed today is the youth counselor,
Yes.
which is coming back, which we've done away with.
Which is long overdue,
It's
absolutely.
definitely long overdue. And she's definitely a big help to the
Absolutely.
officers, because she's that liaison between, they don't always want to talk to a police officer. And she's there getting all the information we need. And now she's not acting as an agent of ours, but she's getting it smoothed out before it even gets to us. So that's really a big plus. And that's a great thing to bring back.
Then we have the JOUT program during the summertime.
And that's where she works in the summertime.
That's where she's
So
working.
it doesn't just stop during school.
Yeah,
It
it's definitely
continues on.
a 12-month-a-year job, so.
And one of the things in deference to the councilman who was concerned about the whole, what the Deputy Chief Pantina was talking about is they may be housed in the middle schools, but the thing is, and we had this dialogue with the Board of Education, Mayor, and others when we met, the chief and the deputy chief, and that is that they will be going to the other schools,
schools,
and
absolutely.
there will be no schedule, so that no one will know
Yeah,
when
you're not
they're-
going to know at 10 o'clock that
Yeah.
the officer is going to
Yeah.
be at, Brooklawn or
Yeah.
It's going to be a little
Central.
difficult
Yes.
because of the logistics of Parsippany and the demographics of it to cover 10 schools plus 2 middle schools to have 2
Well,
officers
they'll
do
be
that.
handling
Yes.
6 each.
Yeah.
6 each.
6 each, yeah.
So it's still
So-
a task and a half, if you want to
It,
say.
it will, it will be a job, but they can do it. I
I'd
mean,
rather see a combination of SRO officers and civilians. Maybe the Board of Education hire additional people, under your budget to really
But
cover these
here's the
10
problem,
schools.
Councilman. The problem is this: when you hire civilians, they we can't give orders to those civilians,
Right.
Because they're not police officers, and therefore they basically don't even have to listen to our police department or our officers. So therefore, civilians doesn't work in this type of an atmosphere.
Well, they're retired officers.
Well, we
Yeah,
can't
but
do that
just
yet.
because they're
Right now.
retired doesn't mean that they hold. Now, this Tier 3 thing might
Oh,
be
Class
more
3
in our
does.
favor.
The Class 3,
Class
I
3,
think,
yeah.
is a great route to go.
Right.
Get proper coverage for
Sure.
all the schools.
Let's wait and get legislation.
Here's the
has to
thing,
pass
Class
on that.
3, that's the whole idea of the legislation. So they have the powers of a police officer. A retired police officer doesn't have those types of jurisdictions. They're civilian, the police department has no control over them whatsoever, a retired police officer. But a Class 3 police officer,
Right.
once it's adopted, that's the whole idea, that they get hired under the municipality, under the police department, but the schools have just as much jurisdiction with them as well, in a combination of
And we keep up with the
a
training.
partnership.
And-
It's just because, retired guys retire. I mean, you guys know you don't get any more training.
No, and Chief, I just,
We could enforce training with specials and with regular police.
Right, but in regards to training and taking orders, they would report, whether it's the Board of Education or to a police department, whoever works takes orders from a boss. So whether they're a civilian retired police officer, which I have a high regard and respect for them because they are out there actually still doing their job after they're retired. So, it's very important that, they do know the role that they play and they do take orders, and we all do as employees. We all work for the taxpayers. But, more so, I have that deep concern about the proper coverage.
just let me just stress, because I know you're going on with it, you got to remember there's other fundamentals that we didn't talk about. Insurance, when you're putting an armed police officer in a school, now you're being covered by the town. So there's a lot of other intricacies that go involved with this. So that's why you need to have, obviously,
You're covered by the Board of Ed if you're.
Yeah.
You are covered by the Board of Ed, their insurance liability.
well, that's why there's also legislation being proposed for the Class 3, which will cover. I just wanted to stress one thing here. I was a Parsippany police officer for over 20 years, and I worked for Chief Pantina, or Deputy Chief Pantina at the time, and actually I worked with a lot of the other fellows out there. But you got to remember, this town has always been proactive, keeping an eye on our schools. So when we're on patrol, right, you have 5 sections in this town. You have 14 buildings. Those patrol officers and sergeants and supervisors are always going by those schools, no matter what. You'll always see a presence out there. So what we're really doing now is being very proactive. We have a history since 2002 of having police officers, armed officers in the schools, okay? Unfortunately, these horrendous acts are taking place in this world that we live in, okay? My child happened to be involved where these hideous crimes took place at Virginia Tech. So what they're trying to do is they're coming up with a proactive plan, and the Board of Ed sees the effect and how positive that is. So eventually, if in fact this legislation passes, right, we hopefully will have the funding working with the Board of Ed to have Class 3s. So that will resolve all the problems. But if we sit back on our hands and do nothing, and something horrendous happens, then we all morally have an obligation to explain to the public, you know, why we're not going through with this. And you have the Board of Ed that's stepping up, working with us on this. And you have a detailed proposal of how they're gonna manage this. So I see this truly, council and the mayor, as a win-win for the town. And I would even take it a step further in regards to dealing with the juvenile issues. I know that we had, you know, our numbers should really be at 113. Hopefully, God willing, when we have surpluses and Ann and Ellen over there pull some magic on our budget, we could bring those numbers up there. But we really need to have even our juvenile bureau. You know, we had an active special enforcement unit there that was working with adult crimes and obviously juvenile crimes. And I'm for having that unit be even more active. And that's another issue that we have to speak about, Mayor, because I know we discussed that with the Special Enforcement Unit. And I know that was something that was positive for everybody.
Well, Councilman Valori-
But let me finish what I'm going to say. I'm just telling you right now, we will make a mistake if we don't vote for this. Because to me, it's a win-win. You have the school superintendent here, you have Board of Ed members. This is not for bells and whistles. You're putting another 2 officers in the school, and now you're going to have them rotating to the other schools, plus you have patrol that's on the road. So I don't see any holes in this. We're being proactive, and we're moving forward. So that's how I speak my mind on this.
Councilman Valori, you know, I'm not saying that we should not have the program expanded because, as I said, I was an advocate of it. And let me take it one step further. I was a victim myself in our Parsippany school system of such a violent act. We had somebody come on our prom day when I graduated high school in 1988 with a shotgun come to school, and we were all mandated to go to the auditorium. We luckily were not hurt during that event, but it was a very fearful event for a young adult like myself at the time. Right. I have a 3-year-old in the community. I don't want him or any of our children, as I mentioned, they should all be treated equally with the equal protection and equal people being in our school system to protect them. That I feel very passionate about this. You know, so it's a great program, but we need to expand it a little bit further. And as Councilman Valori mentioned, if we wait and something happens, we have to address that to the public. Not only to the public, but it could be any of our families as well. So what I'm saying is, don't wait to take care of the 10 schools. Let's talk about it, doing it now.
Sure, we're open for dialogue at any time. I mean, we definitely, this is a step, you know, and hopefully this thing, and I'm really confident that it will work, and then we'll take the next step after that. I mean, and we won't wait that long, and that's why that director is an important position, because he's going to be evaluating the whole school system with the security, and he's going to come back to us with a report saying, hey, this is what we need to do, and this is how we need to do it.
And that legislation that's being proposed right now, obviously, we can't wait on that. We can always change things, but that's why I'm passionate about having the additional support, as I mentioned. Our business administrator brings up a good point about finances. Do you have a detailed breakdown as to how much it would cost us for the additional promotions in-house. You said a lieutenant. That could be maybe lead to somebody else being promoted, like a sergeant. Can you
Right.
tell me a little bit about, how we're
Sure.
actually going to pay for the breakdown of, let's say, their tech credits, their college, their medical,
Well, tech
armor, and
credits
everything?
tech credits stay with them, and medical stays the same throughout their
That's
career
contractual.
as they go to new schools.
What are we paying per officer right now? Total body armor, tech credits, the whole contract. What is it per officer right now? Not including their base salary as the additional.
Well, that's different for everybody. So
Yeah, if they're-
if you
they're a
have an
brand new
officer that's
officer.
more
as it
advanced,
relates to your proposal, then.
well, this will not change anything.
No.
This is not going to change anything because they're already trained. So they're not adding any more salary because they're becoming the director of school security. What is going to change is that as we have a system in place where you have a certain amount of supervisors. So say we have 9 lieutenants. If we promote one more lieutenant, it's really just the difference between the sergeant's rank and the lieutenant. So every person that we promote is only one salary change, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
So if the difference between the ranks is $10,000, then that's the difference between making a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, a deputy chief. Okay, so you can make all 4 or 5 of those promotions.
Right.
And the only difference is $10,000 because you're already in place with those numbers. It's not like you're hiring a whole nother person,
Right.
paying him $100,000 a year. It's $10,000. So that, if that's what you're asking, that would be the difference.
And he might want to know this too, dealing with the table of organization and equipment with the staff. We're not going outside our table of organization and equipment in regards
Well,
to.
no, we're staying within the ordinance.
You're
Within
staying
the
within the
ordinance.
ordinance.
We're definitely staying within the ordinance. So I think for lieutenants, we're at,
18.
the ordinance says 8,
No, 8, yeah, 8. we're
8,
at-
and we're, I think, going to be at 7 with this.
So we're actually one under
Yeah,
one
we're
under,
one-
yeah.
we're one under the
Definitely under
lieutenant.
the,
And
Even
we'd
with
be
sergeants,
we'd be
Even
one
with
under or
sergeants
so
also?
for
Yeah, so we're
sergeant.
still under that,
yes.
So you'd be on
the
the cap.
threshold, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely, we stay under the ordinance. We don't
Okay.
change the ordinance. You'll hear from us if we want to
Yeah,
change
that was a big, issue, that was a concern for all of us
Yeah.
there.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may. The youth counselor. Back in the 80s, the youth counselor was an integral part of the Municipal Alliance Committee, a participating member, and I hope that youth counselor will be also participating in today's
Yes.
Municipal Alliance Committee.
Definitely, that sounds
Well,
like
the
a great
committee's,
idea. That sounds great,
The committee's
yeah.
100% appointed by the mayor, so I'll ask her to come.
Sure. Could be a job requirement.
One
have
additional
some
question about the youth counselor, as Mr. DePiero had mentioned. Will we have officers in the school and counselor that is bilingual that can meet our changing needs and
You have the one.
talk to the children within the school?
Well, we have Officer Detective Ortiz, who's Spanish, and
And
is
is there
fluent
other,
in both
other
languages.
languages that they may have, or are we going to
That's-
have an
that's-
interview process where we can have people that are multi-bilingual that can communicate with the children of today?
Well, we definitely have that availability. So even if we have run into a problem in the daytime,
You have it in the
we have plenty of Spanish-speaking officers around.
But not just that.
Well, not
we have
just Spanish.
Plenty of Hindi.
Well,
We have
well-
Hindi, we have.
Yeah.
a
Well,
lot
you
of
have
other
that within
languages.
the Board of Education itself,
Southeast
Yeah,
Asian
we don't,
languages.
the teachers.
Yeah, well, we have
Well,
what we
language
have.
specialists
With
in every
Excuse me.
civil service, we can only hire
The,
who's on a list. So
The
you know,
court systems have all languages on call. They have experts in every language on call. Maybe there's a way that the township could tap into those experts and have them on call for us.
And we utilize the
we
language
have,
bank
We have
also.
individuals in the town that we reach out to for Hindi, for Spanish, as
Yes.
well as the police
Yeah,
department.
We
So-
utilize the language bank, which we have
Yeah.
numbers of community members
volunteers
that
that
speak
come and
different
volunteer
languages,
as well.
and they volunteer their services. So we normally don't run into a problem with that.
Thank you.
Chief, I have some questions for you. You stated that this total proposal would cost about $270,000 in salary, correct?
Well, no,
No.
no, I'm saying that the Board of Ed
Between
would be.
between us and them would be about $270,000. Between
That's their
salaries
part.
for everybody.
Well, no, the Board of Ed is contributing $270,000 from their end. On our end, it
No,
is
for the two additional,
for the two additional, it's 50,000 each.
each.
Yes,
Right, and
which
then
totals-
we would pay the rest of the
We would-
officer's salary.
Well, yeah, the rest of their
Correct.
salary would be paid by the township.
Right, so it would be a lieutenant and 2 officers.
No, no. Well, the 2 officers are going to be paid the 50,000. The lieutenant, who's doing the director's job, would be getting half his salary which is roughly 70,000.
Right, so the Board of Ed would pay 50,000 per person, and
per
we would pay the
person,
rest.
and we would pay whatever the rest of their salary is.
So, salary and benefits, we would pay. The
Right.
rest of it.
Half the salary
Okay.
benefits, yeah.
Right.
Half the salary and the benefits.
Right.
Okay. A security officer, we have Officers Salito and Duffy in the schools right now. They get paid, I believe, $50,000 a year.
I don't know.
I believe that's what it is by the Board of Ed.
I believe that's correct.
So, and I am all in favor of having an armed security, an armed officer inside the school. But at a total cost, if it's well over $200,000, we already have Salito and Duffy are in the middle schools right now.
But they're not armed.
They're not armed, but if you were to hire retired armed officers in the schools, and you took that $200,000+, you'd be able to hire 5 more retired police officers at $50,000 apiece. Now that would be for the 10 elementary schools, you'd be hiring 5 armed retired officers. Now, we talk about the difference between a police officer and a civilian. Today, you're a police officer.
Right.
You retire tomorrow. You go to work in the schools, and you have a carry permit. You're allowed to carry. Are you able to prevent an incident a day later after retirement? Are you able to stop an incident? Are you able to address and investigate an incident a day after, 6 months after retiring, and follow up on an investigation?
Sure, I would be able to do that. But as time goes on, and you're hopefully not just hiring them for 6 months,
Right.
you're going to run into a problem down the line with these officers that are hired by the Board of Ed. We're not going to hire the officers. They're a board,
Right.
like you talked about Duffy and Salito. Duffy and Salito are not, they don't fall under the police department or the
Right.
township. So what rules the Board of Ed gives them, that's their rules.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's
exactly.
not our
So
rules.
they would report directly to them.
Right.
Right.
And
I know they
just
offer.
1 second, just
Go
to
ahead.
get back to the salaries. You make it seem like the salaries aren't there now. They're there.
The salaries are
These
already there.
officers are
You're
still
paying for
here.
it, right.
So it's
Right.
not like
but we're losing
hiring
them
new
off the
people.
road. We're losing those 2 officers off the road.
You're taking 2 people off the road, yes.
Right.
You are.
Okay.
Well, can I just stress
No,
one
wait,
thing?
hold on.
Okay.
So
For the school year.
I know that we run SRO training. I know that for a fact. I
Right.
see it. I see
Yeah,
the people
sure.
there. So we have that. You talk about the DDSS would be able to implement these programs, this and that. I can tell you firsthand, and I know you can't argue this with me. You have an officer or a retired police officer in a school. I spend all day in Littleton School. Who's going to know that school better than me? Nobody. I'm going to know it. I don't care. You could be a police officer that stops in here or there. Nobody's going to know that school as well as I do. So my thing is if we're able to hire more than double the amount of people, because if you can hire a retired officer that can carry a weapon for $50,000 a year with no benefits, it's $50,000 a year that the Board of Ed can pay. Doesn't cost us. It comes out of their budget. You're able to cover almost half of the schools in one shot. So you can hire 5.5 more of these retired security officers that can carry a gun. We have 10 elementary schools. So that's more. They wouldn't have more than 2. Now, we talk about, Mr. Peluso brought up the Governor's New Jersey Task Force report. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. Somebody brought up Newport, Connecticut. Newport, Connecticut right now they're utilizing retired police officers in their schools ever since that incident that carry a gun. That's exactly what they're doing. There's other schools in New Jersey right now that are utilizing that program. Regional High Point, Patterson, North Brunswick. They're all using retired police officers for half the amount of pay. You don't have to pay benefits. Granted, they don't have arrest powers, civilian powers, that's it. But what's to stop them from, okay, I have an incident, you're a retired officer, you stop something that you see, picking up the phone, calling the police department saying, hey, I have this incident. And especially, we have Duffy and Salito, they're retired Parsippany officers.
Right.
Yeah, but they're employees of the Board of Ed, though.
Well, they're employees of the Board of Ed, but they also know, I mean, they worked here in the police department.
You make all valid points. You
Yeah.
make all valid
Can I
points.
follow up
But
with
the whole, but just one
Yeah.
second. The whole presentation that we just gave was predicated on the fact that the police department was going to run the security. Okay?
That's my
We
point.
have our hands in on the security. It's the first thing I don't think anybody in the state has this function the way we want to do it. You can, everybody knows kids in the high school, or they know kids in the school. They'll know that who's a cop and who's not a cop in about 2 days. And they'll know what they can get away with and what they can't get away with.
So you're telling me if you were in a school tomorrow, they'd be able to pull stuff over you?
No, they're not going to be able to pull stuff over me, but you're going to have more of a difficult time with the kids and the people you're dealing with when they know that you're not a police officer. It's just, I'm stating fact. That's the way it's going to go.
If you allow it.
Well, if you allow it. But what powers do you have as that civilian security guard?
Right.
What powers do you have?
They don't even carry.
You have no arrest powers?
Right, but if you get,
I don't know if the Board of Ed, and that's something you'd have to ask the Board of Ed. I don't even know if the Board of Ed would allow somebody to carry a gun.
If you
that's
get
not a police
information,
officer in the
that
school.
would be up to them. If they want to have an armed officer inside there, obviously they have to go through state regulations. I qualify retired police officers every day, so
Right.
I know they go through the same qualifications that a regular police officer
And you
does.
do know that it's up to the superintendent of the schools to determine whether you can carry a gun or not.
Absolutely. So
have
if
confidence
Can I,
Parsippany School Board
can I just interject one
wants
thing here?
to hire qualified people, that's what they would do.
Right.
Retiring from the military, there's something where you want a chain of command, okay? The reality is, I was up in Randolph a week ago with the mayor of Randolph, and the chief of police was there, and he only wished he had our numbers that we have because they want to put police officers in that school. So I'd tell my council colleagues to reach out to the mayor of Randolph and to the chief of police there. But when I look at the totality of what we're trying to do here is that we already set the precedent since 2002, having 2 police officers in the schools, okay? Unfortunately, like I said earlier, some horrendous acts have occurred over the last 15-plus years. So now we're like splitting hairs, because at the end of the day, if the school superintendent, Dr. Seitz, wants to put 10 retired cops in the school, okay, 10 of them, and we're going to go back to that $50,000 mark, okay, he has every right to do that in front of his Board of Ed and get that approved. However, those security officers are not police officers. They don't have arresting powers. They're not armed. So when we're going back to the Parsippany Police Department, and hopefully we'll be back one day up to 113 officers, we will really set the precedence and benchmark, right, where we're still working with the Board of Ed, where hopefully this legislation is passed in this, I don't want to talk about the state too bad, that they get off their butts and do their job, our legislators, where we do get this Class 3 approved. Because then they will be under our control, okay? And then they will be directed by us as how we want to provide security. Because again, like the mayor said and the chief, we as police officers can't direct a retired security officer or just a normal civilian security officer to do something. So that's under our control. That is our specialty. So why would we want to kind of break up that continuity? So if we're hiring these officers for $50,000 or even less, we're going to hope that we're going to work with our Board of Ed colleagues, and they're going to support us because it's still coming from the taxpayers. So no matter how we look at it,
Council President, when you're done, I support the proposal the way it was presented.
Yes.
Okay? All of this sidebar discussion for the past 45
Absolutely.
minutes can be discussed at some future point.
Absolutely.
I'm
We're sidetracking what it is that
I'm
was
bringing
proposed.
up right, but I'm bringing up questions to that. Okay, we're talking about able to cover more schools. We're able to have an armed retired police officer in almost every school.
Those are
the same price.
Those are legitimate discussions, okay? But right now we have a proposal that's been approved by the administration, approved by the superintendent and the school board, and that's what we should move on this. What you're saying now would be a future proposal or
No, I'm
different.
saying to do it
or-
now, right before we do this.
Well, no, you're mixing.
Okay, well, you wouldn't
This
rather
is
have
not
an
gonna-
armed. You wouldn't rather have an armed person in every school for the same price?
yeah, but they're
Okay, so they would report.
Let me just add one
but
thing.
Wait, hold on. They would report. You talk about chain of command. They would report
But they're not armed,
to
though.
Mr. Seitz. Well, he could hire armed.
But that's their prerogative.
Right.
Now, we're putting armed police officers
In 2
in a
schools.
school that there's a continuity of, listen, you're sharing, listen, I worked for the Parsippany Police Department. They are going to be police officers trained, okay, that have numerous amounts of experience. And more than likely, these guys are going to be, who they're going to point there were former detectives or they're going to be made detectives because our juvenile bureau is even lacking so much. That's why I brought up the special enforcement unit, because you need to have that position filled for obviously working with the juveniles and the adult investigations. We have a lot going on in the town, but
You don't think a
but
retired
now-
officer would work
Okay.
with a juvenile detective when they worked with him for 25 years?
But the reality is you just cannot share internal documentation that if I'm doing a drug investigation as the resource officer assigned to that school, I can't share that information with a civilian that's going to be in that
Council
school.
President, we're dragging this on and
Well,
on.
I'm just trying to stress,
I know.
I understand, I'm trying to educate everybody here, because
But
I work for
the
I'm
point
just
is-
trying to find a way to have an armed officer in every school.
Well,
But
here's the
right now,
way.
we don't have that.
I would,
could
I would,
for the
I don't
same price.
disagree with that, but not, right now,
Okay.
we have a proposal, it's been planned out, it's been agreed upon, let's approve this. What you're proposing, I'm not opposed to, but not, right now, let's deal with what we have in front of us.
Well, you wouldn't wanna do
Council
that
President,
right
can I just
now
add
for
one
the
I don't
thing?
think,
Yes,
it-
just
I don't
so-
think it can be.
I,
done at the
I
same
spoke to
time.
the author of the bill, Class 3, and he said the whole intent is to do exactly what Councilman Valori is saying, Councilman Karifi is saying, and Councilman Paluso is saying, to have a resource officer in every school. But they also recognize in that bill that that resource officer has to have those powers of a police officer. And that resource officer has to be able to coordinate with the police department. And the police department then coordinates with the school board. That's the whole idea of that bill, because they realize you can't do Class 2. You can only do Class 3. And the fact of the matter is, once this bill gets passed, which I think is they're going to expedite it, then we can do the things that the council members want to do.
That's when we do what you guys are proposing.
And
When
then
that bill is
this plan right here gets scrapped and it goes
No,
to
no, it just
We're gonna
gets,
build upon
it
it.
just
You
gets built
realize what a
upon.
Class 3 special is.
Can't have 10.
Yeah, so,
Shouldn't have.
They're going to work in the schools, that's all they're going to do.
But
They're
they're
Class 3,
employees
they're
of the
not
police
a,
department, though.
right,
Yeah.
but they're a
Employees of-
special officer.
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
they have arresting powers, they're employees of the police
So
department.
they have, actually, that bill gives them the same
Hours as a regular
But they're
active
as a
officer.
regular SRO
Right,
officer.
but they're not
Yes.
full-time police officers. They're
okay,
specials.
so what?
Right.
Yeah, but.
So that's what I'm saying. So you can now hire more and put more in the schools.
We can add on to this program later when it's studied and discussed with the school board. Right now, the school board and the administration have
I'm
agreed
just
to
saying, for the
this.
same cost, we could have all the
I don't-
schools.
I don't-
Here's, I just
believe
want to
it.
just stress
I
one
don't
thing.
believe it's the same cost.
Can I just stress one more thing here?
He's saying for $100,000.
Ken,
they can fill those.
Ellen, I just
No,
want
I'm
to,
saying,
can I
I'm
just stress?
saying you have benefits for an officer. You mean to tell me that an officer's salary,
Okay.
top pay officer's salary is $50,000 with
It's not,
benefits and everything?
but what you're
All right,
saying
can
is
we
you
reel
would
it back
rather
in for
not
one second?
have
Ellen,
another additional
Ellen,
two.
I know you mean well.
I know, but
Hold on.
what I'm saying is, instead of saying go ahead with this because the plan, we haven't heard from the Board of Education. They're not saying we're going to give
Okay.
you that $270,000. Oh, let's change the plan. Let's
Okay.
make it be this.
Let me just say one thing here.
You can't.
The chief of police and the
Discuss it
mayor,
like this.
okay, we brought the department to 101 officers. We have no authority as a council dealing with the day-to-day operation with the police department. So we're not dealing with the school right now. So if we wanted to use those other 4 officers to do deep cover on their operations in the town, okay, to do patrolling in certain areas, to do running radar, we have all those options to do that. And hopefully when we're up to the number that we need to be. But right now, we know, folks, that there's a problem in this country and all these schools are very soft targets. So morally and ethically, we have an obligation. And this is a great, great stance for the town of Parsippany for once, so we don't bring out drama here, that we're working with the Board of Ed, right, with Dr. Seitz and his Board of Ed members to make our children feel safe when they go to school. Now, is the plan perfect? No, but it's going to keep, it's a living, breathing document. Hopefully, this legislation passes, and then we could put the Class 3 in there. So hopefully, at one point or time or another, we'll have a total of 14 armed officers with arresting powers to be in the school. So what we're doing right now is something we always had in place. Now we're just expanding upon it. So I'm just stressing, this is something that's good for the town and the community. And again, later on, we're going to have a public hearing portion. And, folks could ask as much questions they want. But at the end of the day, you don't want to wake up and some mad person runs into a school and does a horrendous act to anybody that's in that school.
That's
and
why
this
we
thing-
can't
that's
wait
a-
for Class 3. We have to
but,
fill in
but,
all
we
the
are,
schools.
but you're missing our point of what we're trying to say to you. We are moving along with that. We're working with the Board of Ed. Right now, we don't have Class 3 officers that we could put in schools. We're putting 2 officers with a supervisor, so we have a total of 4. And we're going to expand upon it. No one's saying that we're not going to expand upon it, but we can't expand upon anything
let's not
until
wait.
that legislation.
When
What do you say
would
you
this
can't
program
wait?
take effect?
Chief?
Immediately.
April.
April?
As soon as
I
you're
mean, yeah.
done agreeing on whatever, and I think the Board of Ed still has to vote on
So
it.
for the last couple months of the school year.
What you basically got to do is vote on this.
Well, this is not getting votes tonight, just getting
No,
introduced.
next week.
Yeah.
And then it goes up to vote for the school board.
Right.
To the school board members, with all due respect, we've been talking about school board. You're here. Would any of you like to come up and speak on this matter? Or Dr. Seitz, would you like to speak as well? You're guest here. We're talking about you and your budget and different things, but we can't speak for you. So would you like to say any words?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Well, good evening.
This brings back old times.
It does, except I'm usually on that side of the table. It's strange being on this side of the table. First of all, I want to thank the council and the mayor for working with us to bring this proposal forward. As was indicated a few moments ago, I would not call this a perfect plan. But I think I'd wait for a good plan. I'd do a good plan today rather than wait for a perfect plan. As was said, we are moving forward. We are improving the safety for our students. What we do 6 months from now could be dramatically different. But really, for the first time in my career, we have a township, municipality, working cooperatively with the school district to enhance the safety of our students and our staff. And that's remarkable and appreciated. My entire career, I've never had one course in school safety, in school security. I'm not the person to tell you how to secure our schools. My entire career, we've always relied on the local police department. We relied on the state and the guidelines they give us. As you've indicated, today's times are challenging, unprecedented, and frightening. Very frightening. We have an opportunity before you tonight, voted on next week, I understand, where we can take a step forward to enhance the security of our students and our staff. I would encourage you to take that step, recognizing that we will continue to monitor it. We will look for legislation coming down the pike, and when that legislation comes, if it does, we'll look at how it impacts what we're doing. By that I mean we'll work with the police department to determine what is the best way to move forward. But right now we have an opportunity to have more next month than we have today. And to me, that's a good thing. So I would certainly support this proposal. I think at the end of the day, it is certainly the right thing to do. And I really rely heavily on our police department. I've been here since 2006 with an extended vacation. But in those years, and we're talking about years now, I have always been able to rely on the Parsippany Troy Hills Police Department. I've always been impressed with their knowledge, with their professionalism, and most importantly, their dedication to protecting our students. So I look to you and the police department and the mayor to continue that relationship, continue to build it, and continue to enhance the safety of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Seitz.
Thank you.
Mr. DePiero, anything else about the SROs?
That was it.
Okay, we'll move forward with the rest of our meeting here.
Mr. Council President, I guess, that actually would be a resolution. At the moment, it's not showing on the agenda for action at the next meeting because, quite frankly, I think the administration can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not on here because I think after the presentation, they were looking for guidance as to whether to put it on, and if it's on, is it consent or is it, or is it?
Do you want me to make a motion?
Was a resolution. So, but Ellen, I wanted to confirm with you that that's correct, because right now there isn't anything on the agenda.
I think what Lou was going to say, I think that's what we should do.
Yeah, what I do is like,
What would happen
Yeah.
is next meeting, it will be placed on the agenda as a resolution.
Yeah, because
to be
the
voted on.
agreement itself is ready to go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not on the agenda now because we had the presentations, but next meeting, March 15th, this will be placed on the agenda as a resolution to prefer.
No,
final vote.
no. If it's ready to be presented,
It's ready to be
we'll make a
voted on.
motion. I'd like to make a motion to add it to our agenda tonight so we can vote on it next week.
Yeah, and I would point out, the Board of Education has
Okay, that's-
already approved the actual
Yeah.
agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've done their
Yes.
work.
So there was a little bit of a technical glitch here. All right, so I'll second your motion to put it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a motion isn't, I mean, it will be added regardless.
Yeah,
of
you
the
don't need a
No, you
motion.
don't need a
Yeah,
motion.
right.
I think we're just looking. I think we're just looking for direction
Okay.
to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Wanted to point that out because it's not on the agenda now for next meeting. And if it's going to go on the agenda next meeting, obviously, if everybody agrees with it, it should be placed on the consent agenda.
Correct.
So should we make a motion on that for the consent agenda?
I think you just want to take a straw poll to see whether folks want it on the consent agenda
Or the non-
or whether they want it as a separate resolution.
Correct.
So we know where to put it on the agenda.
Right.
Okay, Mr. DePiero, you want the consent agenda?
I have no problem with it being on a separate vote. I mean, let's all stand up and support it.
Yeah, I'm in favor of obviously put on the consent agenda.
Okay.
He said separate vote.
No, I said
Separate vote, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Separate
So,
vote.
okay, so it'll be placed on non-consent next,
Non-consent.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Not
a
a
new
problem.
term for us.
Loretta, you fine with that?
Non-consent.
Okay.
But we need to get the resolution in our hands as council and also the agreement as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the agreement's ready. You'll have that.
We've not seen it.
You'll have that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll email that out to
Email
all of
to
us?
us tomorrow?
Okay.
Thank you.
Paul, you all right with that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Good.
All right, thank you for bringing that up, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. The business administrator, do you have any good news for us?
I know. I was told by the council president, don't be like a professor and go on and on and on.
I did say that.
You did say that. He feels we're like family, and he feels he can say whatever he feels like saying. But I love him for that. I feel we're family. One of the things I just want to talk about, and then anything, one of the things, I feel like it's on, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's not picking it up.
It is on.
Well, they put cameras in. Let's get microphones.
And action.
How about turn up the volume?
Yeah, is the volume up, Khalid? Is the this one.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Dr. Seitz.
Thank you, Dr. Seitz, Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me, Lee? Lee? Probably not. You can't even- No, not really. It's on.
Wait a minute, is it on the microphone? Test.
Up here? All right, got it.
Ellen, are you being difficult over there?
No, I'm trying to. How about, can you hear me now, Lee? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right.
You gotta press the button.
What I will answer to, in the report, I want to just talk about one thing that was left to address last meeting, and then any other things that are on the agenda for discussion, I will address them if questions are asked about it. But one of the most important things that we left last meeting was the concerns that Nick Homiak, who really has such a passion for the cleanliness and the look of our community. What I said at that point, and I delivered on that, and that was that even if I had to go and pick up the trash myself, I would do that. But I thought better of it and said, perhaps the professional Ellen should show up. And what I did was, the next day I did meet with our Director of Public Works. I said how important it was that there was more communication with someone who has such an interest and has done such a caring and dedicated job to improving it. I will be handing over to Nick documentation that I received from the Director of Public Works as it relates to the new hire that the new recycling coordinator, who will be doing many things, not just for recycling, but for trash and other things and enforcement. for the record, I just want to say that because we like to work with directly with the individuals that come to council meetings and have concerns, that on Thursday, Nick will be meeting with both Chad and Greg to go over some of the things, and I'm going to provide this package with him that has enforcement documentation, as well as what was distributed to all the stores with regard to keeping their areas clean, that has a schedule that says when the recycling are being done. It's kind of disheartening when you think that here we are picking up the trash and that and doing it for the stores and the recyclables, and that they still feel the need to utilize recycling bins and garbage bins that are out there for the public to use, not their own trash. But as Nick said, he's curious. The trash has been of a lower level. He doesn't know what's going on, but I think you'll find out the rest of the story on that on Thursday, okay, Nick? So, again, that's how we're handling that directly. But I'm hoping that Nick can make a report next meeting, and then I certainly can follow up on the overall to the mayor and council and to the residents about how we're handling enforcement, how we're handling notices that have to go out, and keeping the places, that should be maintained. And it's not for the lack of trying. So it's a work in progress, but we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks.
Our township attorney.
Just on the SRO agreement, the clerk will have the agreement tomorrow, and I presume he will distribute it to you immediately.
Okay.
You now have 2 weeks in between meetings, so that's plenty of time. I invite any council member who has any questions at all regarding the agreement that they can contact my office. If you need a response to something the rest of this week, contact Justin Marquetta. But anytime after that, next week, call me. And that's, I think, plenty of time to have any of your questions answered, so that the agreement will be at least ready to be acted on the 15th.
Thank you. And you've been very quiet over there. Anything to report?
Yes, I do, actually. I have two resolutions. I just want to mention, you don't have the detail quite yet. You'll have it by midweek next week. They're just housekeeping, really, a budget appropriation, transfers, and the temporary emergency budget that'll come out. That's just housekeeping to continue the budget. As you know, we passed the temporary budget. That's only 25%, so we just have to up that a bit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our township clerk.
No report.
Thank you. Township office committee reports. Loretta, do you have any questions about
Well, not a question.
a report on the library?
I was at a library meeting recently, and Jane Beeline has received 3 floor plans to the renovation of the Lake Hiawatha Library. No final decision has been made. They all look exciting, and the board is excited about the renovations that will be made, and we look forward to when they will be completed. A question was asked of me if I knew if the library would be open during the renovation, and I had no answer for that, but I will find out. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to stress to the council, I was a former member of the library committee, and I give the folks on that committee that have been there for years, they have a love and a passion to educate the children in our town. And I took for granted how busy that library is in
Very
Lake
much.
Hiawatha, because it's in walkable distance, and it's like really a community center. So that's long overdue to get renovated, and that will be, that jewel down in Lake Hiawatha that's long overdue down there. And thank you.
The question I have on the library is, does the library put out their own bid for this? Do we bond for it, or do they bond for it? How do we handle this?
That was in last year's capital plan. The township.
Our capital
we
plan.
do it. Yes, we do the capital work for the library, and it was already approved by the council last year's
But they
budget.
put out for bid and select a contractor?
I believe we do all that.
We do all of
We do that. They do give proposals and do have an architect, but we do the bid.
And I believe, Ann, if I remember correctly, sitting in the audience, the bid was for 1.5 million?
Well, the approval from the council.
Yes.
And was, and the capital plan was 1.5 million. I believe there's some new, I think, did we talk about some changes to that plan a bit?
Okay.
That we have to discuss.
And that was last year?
Yeah, that was
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
They're just getting the plans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, go,
One
sorry.
question, I'm sorry. And can you tell us if there's been any discussion with the library system in regards to overrun? Because I was speaking to somebody at the library, and they said they're anticipating a large overrun on expenses.
I'm not they did, you mean on the library, on the Lake
On the money that we
Hiawatha?
appropriated
Yeah,
to
I
get the
think,
project completed.
from what I understand, they're going to discuss that during budget process.
Okay,
During the
will
budget.
you
didn't
be
give
part
us-
of that process as well to ensure that
Oh,
we're...
yeah, it'll be
That's
coming
when
to
they-
you.
When they're coming here to do their presentation,
Yeah.
that's when
Okay.
they're gonna talk about it.
That'll be part of
So
the
we don't have a
capital.
lot of detail on it, we just know that
Okay.
there was an overrun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Council President, one of the.
Yes.
one-
You want this, Ellen?
Because I can hear that it's not picking up. One of the things I should have mentioned is, one of the concerns when we did the Finance Committee meetings, which we did have, was from Councilman Paluso, concerned about the minutes. We did provide lengthy minutes of that meeting to both Loretta and to Rob, and you know, we'd like you to look them over, and if you want to add something to it, and then we'd like to distribute to the entire council, so that, you know, you don't need to communicate, because we did cover, it was about a 2-hour meeting, and I put in both Councilman Paluso and Councilwoman Grignani's box tonight about 2 or 3 pages of what we covered, and you know, covered quite a bit of data, because there's lots more than just budgets and other items that we did touch upon, and I believe it was a good meeting, and now it's, you know, recorded. So if there's something that you need, they need, that they want to add to it before we distribute them, I would just ask both Loretta and Rob to take a look at that, and so that we can have it to the full council before next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other information on the committee reports? Okay. Bids taken, February 26, 2016, sealed proposal for one new type 4x4 emergency medical vehicle for the EMS squad. To be taken, March 16, 2016, sealed proposals for new sewer televising equipment to be supplied and installed in a township sewer utility trailer. See quotations, proposals, qualifications, none. I'm going to go to the public hearing portion. I'd like to entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, second by Mr. Paluso. Roll call.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes. Great. If anybody from the audience here would like to come up, you have 5 minutes. Just please sign in and state your name, and feel free to ask questions.
Okay.
My name is Bob Venezia.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like
Just tap it, Bob. There it goes. You're good to go.
My name is Bob Venezia. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. And I'd like to follow up on my comments from the last meeting regarding the article in Roy's Corner stating that Parsippany is being overcharged for medical plan administrative costs. Since the last meeting, I learned that there are actually 2 companies, Fairview Insurance Company and IDA, that bill Parsippany for services related to our self-insured medical plan. IDA does all of the administrative tasks such as claims processing and record keeping. And its monthly $23 charge per plan member is in line with what's being charged to other towns. In contrast, Fairview's $38.50 monthly fee per plan member appears to be high. At that rate, Fairview's charging Parsippany $254,000 per year for an estimated 550 employees. For comparison purposes, the last proposals made before the council from competing companies such as Brown & Brown specified charges of $150,000 for the same services. At the last meeting, you said you would look into the matter, and I'd like to know if you have you done that, and are we being overcharged? And if so, I respectfully ask that you take steps as soon as possible to bring our costs in line with the other service providers, thus saving Parsippany $100,000 a year. Thank you.
All right, sir, are you all done with your questions?
I didn't think you heard it.
Are you all done with your questioning? Because I'll open it up to return the response.
I'm done.
Okay, great. Ellen or Mayor?
I'm going to just start it off, and I'm going to let Ellen handle, because we've been working on this. And I want to thank Ann, and I want to thank the BA for the due diligence. First of all, just so you know, this was negotiated, these fees, back in 2011. Access Point and Fairview Insurance negotiated this fee with IDA. Before I hand it over to Alan, just so you know, the industry norm is 3.5% commission, okay? Fairview Insurance is well below the norm, okay? So
It's 1.9%.
yeah, it's 1.9% below the norm. So I'm going to let Alan take over from here, because we really worked hard on this, and we want to give you the information, the correct information, not what you read from Roy's Corner, because this is really 100% of what we've been working on.
In deference to doing it at this time, can we have everybody come up and ask the questions? Because this is quite a bit of to be covered
Okay.
today. We will answer your question, but there's a lot of detail that I will be going over. So in deference to other people, we can ask their questions, and then we'll go.
Yeah,
we'll go
what we'll do
point by
is,
point.
whoever else wants to come, but she
Yeah.
has obviously
Yeah.
a lot of information there, and then she'll read it off, so we can get other folks up here,
Right.
and then we'll answer all that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir,
There's quite a
for
bit of
helping us
detail
out.
to it.
Anybody else like to come forward from the public? You have 5 minutes?
Pat Pataccia, 182 Hawkins Avenue. Ellen, quick.
Yes.
Want to know if you resolved the fire hydrant issue?
I did have it.
Okay.
Yes, because I did have a discussion with the individual that worked on it, had given me the information that you said, and we followed up on it, yes. In the sense of, yes. The answer is yes. I mean, I can take the sidebar to give you more
Yeah,
detail.
that will be
than
fine.
me, but yes.
Okay. Once again, after last week's meeting, I had asked about the Carifi reimbursement. There was talk about it's at the lawyers. Which lawyers? Nobody can give me an answer. I want to see if anybody has a better answer today. There's so many things. I'm assuming Mr. Inglesino is a holdover again. As to the vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The SROs. I don't disagree. We don't need protection in our schools. But one thing I'd like to make a comment first is that there was a misspoke, if you want to say. The old superintendent, Mr. Rixford, did not want to get rid of SROs. I was there during discussions.
Okay.
What he wanted was to be able to have them in the school district and work with the school district, not have anything to do with the police department. He wanted it separate so that they had control of everything. When they needed the cops, they would call the cops.
Mhm.
He was looking out to the retired. Okay? And it does. I mean, I don't know if you did that, but reading it, they say they are going to be budget agreements in the future. So, yeah, how much and what is that? And exactly what's going to affect. We're taking the 2 police officers off the street. How are we replacing them?
And I'll answer that for you, too.
Yeah, well,
I'll answer that for you.
yeah, at the end, I know what you're doing, and what I hear is Parsippany wants to be the first to do this. I say we got to stop rushing into things just to get things done. We better start making some real smart decisions. Why are we spending this money, and so much money? We're going to have to, even though we're going to lose this lieutenant or get a new lieutenant, that's an additional expense, whether we lose him or we don't, because you're going to have to replace him. You're going to have to replace those 2 cops. And every time you put a cop in a school, you're going to have to replace them. So it's a constant replacement of cop over cop over cop. So that turnaround is ridiculous. Where if we can get retired policemen to come in and do this job, who carry concealed weapons, permits, I think they should be able to hold on to that responsibility. It should be a school thing. It really shouldn't be town involved. When we need the cops, they come. But I don't think they
I'll
should
follow
be
up on
there
that for you.
all the time. I mean, there are different things that we're not being told. There are expenses behind this that is not being said.
Now you're down to 1 minute and 30 seconds.
You say we can do this now, and if we can use retired officers later, we can straighten all that stuff out later. Once this goes in, that stops you from preventing anything in the future. Okay, you heard it from him. Once it goes in, that's the way it is. We cannot say, we're going to disband it and go to retired, and let the school board handle it.
I'll follow up.
The way he said it was that this would be it. We have no chance to do it our way. That's exactly what he said.
I'll give you my version once
Okay.
we're done.
Anybody can give a version,
I'll just have 50 seconds left, so I'm trying to let you
but
speak.
I know what I hear.
Okay.
So I ask you once again
Pat, I'll follow up right now for you.
to think about it before you rush into anything and
Pat.
get all the answers.
Okay.
Oh my God, I don't hear
Your time is up. Listen,
Now it is?
I
Thank you.
know that you have been an advocate for the public all the time, and I admire you in regards to where cost savings can be taken, and you've been involved with that for several years. And I'm surprised you haven't run for council yet. But but the reality is this. Here's what we got in place. And I don't want to keep, I don't want Mr. DePiro yelling at me in a second for repeating myself. But this process has always been in place with our officers, okay? And when you look at the bill that's hopefully going to be passed by our legislators, right? This will give us true enforcement power in the schools. Right now, those 2 retired police officers, they're retired police officers that are unarmed, and they have no law enforcement authority whatsoever in those schools. So by us, obviously now following a mandate that the state wants to take place, right? We are now going to make sure that our schools are going to be enforced properly. And, you're not violating anybody's rights. You're not getting information secondhand. You're going to have officers on deck doing their job. You have 2 officers in the high school now that are doing a superb job. So needless to say, if we could save costs by the school and we're following by the governor's rule of shared services, this is a great example of what we're doing with our manpower that we just increased. So, when those officers are done in the schools, they're going to be directed back in the detective bureau doing their regular normal function as a police officer. So these assets, when you say they're being pulled off the street, that's not true. Those officers are still going to be fundamentally doing their other duties also. But at the end of the day, we live in a very transient town. The reality is we have major highways that come through this town. We have a very diverse community. And again, if we don't morally and ethically take this opportunity now to work on getting these officers into school, it's a working, breathing document, and it's going to only get better. And again, I'm
10
sure
seconds left.
there's going to be little bumps in the road, but I really feel for the heart. Listen, my daughter went to Virginia Tech. Her professor was killed, the boy from Bergen County, and that was a tragedy for 32 kids that were killed. And I was out there the next day and seeing families devastated. We never want to see that happen in this town. And a lot of these schools are by major highways. So we don't want to let this opportunity go by now. And hopefully, eventually, when times are good here, we'll be up to 113 officers. And we can do a lot more with our police department. But at the same time, there's going to be Class 3 officers that will be assigned to us, and we'll work on something with the Board of Ed where they pick up that cost. But I think the fundamental values that we have as a council, we have to do this to really do what's right for the public and the safety of our children. And I feel really obligated to express this, and I know I'm going on and on. But thank you. Anybody else? Roy.
Roy Messmer, 10 Drumlin Drive. I don't even know where to begin tonight, Lou, because when you have two presentations like this at an agenda meeting, it's really too much. I don't know why you had to have two, and it should be opened up to the public after each one. But anyway, I do want to say this, though, in the beginning. I want to tell you what tell the administration. The one department in this town that gets an A+ from me is the animal control. That's your best department. With that said, let's hit the news tonight. Tonight it shows me the selfishness and the disrespect the Board of Ed has for the taxpaying public. They left. And I think that was very disrespectful that they left, not to hear the public speak. You know, we talk about, you know, most of you don't know in this room, the two high schools, unless it's been changed, since I brought it up years ago, you have 2 security guards besides the police officers or retired police officers there. What these people do, I don't know. Because I've been on that school system running in the morning. Kids are in the back, landing on their cars, driving down the parking lot where the 2 security guards, not the police officers, are in the front of the building. It's a joke. We're overpaying. And one of those security guards is getting $150 for Saturday and Sunday. And this past morning, I picked up 6 beer bottles at the Littleton school property. I know my time goes fast and I talk fast. Regarding my next subject here, I agree with Paul and Robert tonight, the situation. Now, I know you have an intrinsic value, Lou. You sat in 3 seats here, the Board of Ed, and you were a police officer. But what are we going to do the next time some wacko, whether it's a kid or a grown-up, goes onto a school bus and kills kids? Don't you think they're going to figure out our game plan? They're going to go to the area of least resistance. And you bring up about, you know, your daughter down at Virginia Tech. Well, I have 4 family members that have done well over 10 tours on Afghanistan and Iraq. And they don't have the right equipment. They don't have the right authority. They can't kill and destroy and scorch the earth, which they should be doing. Okay? When you fight a war, that's what you do. I know Nick doesn't like hearing that because he only brought up how the Germans do it, but everybody does it in war. As regarding the conversation regarding this self-insurance, yeah, I'm right, Mayor. My numbers are right. I know you're going to make up any numbers you want here tonight, and then I'll have to come. No, I'm talking.
All right, just no interaction.
I'm talking. He interrupts. Okay? I had a half-hour conversation with the New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance. I also had another half-hour conversation with the federal government because the State Department told me to call the federal government. Do you know that municipalities, because they're self-insured, there are no regulations? There's no regulations at all. So you can do whatever you want with this money, tell the public what you're charging us. There's no regulations. It's a joke. And I'm going to meet with Senator Panaccio and some other people to try to get legislation in place. I don't know how many towns are self-insured because they can't tell me. They don't have the number down in Trenton. Regarding Fairview, tonight I see that, and I have all the Oprah here. If anybody can figure out these numbers, they're better than me, what they're charging us between IDA, Fairview, the self-insurance, I mean the stop-loss insurance, drugs, everything else. Now you're passing a resolution, or you have a resolution on the table tonight for Fairview. Fairview's already been approved because they're in the IDA contract. It's stated in here. You know, Mr. Inglesino said months ago, well, we don't pay Fairview. All right, I mean, come on, we all know. I might not pay the governor directly, but my sales tax, my income tax, my real estate tax, okay, not my real estate taxes are going. And I can't believe the governor and I are on the same page because we're both backing Trump. I mean, that really doesn't make me feel good, but I had to throw that in. Regarding the last thing, this is what's happening in America. The best investment in America is not real estate, it's not stocks and bonds, it's political donations. Take the front page of the Star-Ledger today. The Democrats, yes, are saying that Bridgegate attorneys overcharged the state $3 million. Who was the largest contribution to Chris Christie during his presidential campaign? The Bridgegate attorneys. Here, in Parsippany, we had the same damn thing happening. We overpay for insurance. They make contributions to a PAC, who then back the mayor up, or any other political people. Same thing going on. It's so much legalized organized crime going on in this country. It's ridiculous. How much time do we got left?
30 seconds, Roy.
Oh, great. I know there's more to talk about. I got piles and piles of stuff. I wish you guys would work with me on this PTR. I'm also meeting with state legislations on that. If you have a child living in your house, you shouldn't have your taxes frozen. I did get the one thing already changed, you know, if you put an addition on your house. And the other thing is, it should be total income in the household. So if my brother or even an enemy of mine was living in my house and I qualified for this, which I would never qualified for, but time's up. And I obey the rules there, Carl.
Thank you, Roy. Anybody else from the public?
I'm going to try to have two
This
things.
poor
in
young
one
lady
night.
keeps getting ditched over there. Do you want to?
She's got to push her way forward.
Okay.
Jonathan Nelson, 202 Patriots Road. Ellen, just a real quick question. I'm looking at the resolutions for next week, and I see the appointments, and all the appointments are mentioned on who the professionals are, except for hearing officer services.
It's Frank Pinto and Ben Spinelli.
And what's that? Yeah, I know Frank Pinto.
Frank Pinto used to work for the county. He
Right.
was over about 600 personnel. He has performed, we had a very serious condition here that we felt that in order to do justice to an individual who had, was brought up on charges, we had the hearing officer come in and Frank did an excellent job.
Okay, is this for employees or is this just for the police?
No, it's for the town. Yeah.
So
It could be used for the police, but right now it's been just used for the one individual, and we have another case that we need a hearing officer for.
Well, have they been the hearing officer?
We were doing an internal, and it doesn't bode well.
Okay.
Was a hearing officer. I was a hearing officer. In fact, because of the job that I had to do, to put all the energy and have this hearing and be the hearing officer, the administrator should have never been the hearing officer. So
Yeah.
I did shop around to see if there were individuals who would do this, and Ben Spinelli, who's a former mayor, but he's also a certified mediator, and Frank Pinto, with all his vast employment experience, sat as our hearing officer, and both our labor council, our personnel director, and the people that were involved with the hearing felt, our union representative felt that they did a very fair and equitable job in coming to terms with that. So we're hoping not to, that's just under the bid threshold, but we're hoping not to have to use
Right.
it. But we
Okay.
do have a very serious incident that happened up at the golf,
Okay.
and we need a hearing officer.
So the current police hearing officer, are those services no longer needed, or?
I don't have, there is no,
Oh, sure. The last summer they reappointed Rockaway Chief Police Devine.
Fine, yeah, but I mean, I'm saying that, I'm not talking, I didn't do away with them, or we didn't, administratively, but there's no decision on that, to me, as far as I'm concerned.
Is he our current hearing officer?
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Well, I remember last summer that he was approved for a one-year contract.
You don't, wait a minute, you don't know the answer to that?
I'm saying he was.
No, I'm asking, is he our current hearing officer?
He is a hearing officer.
He is a hearing officer, but we also have
We
this
have a
hearing
number of
officer
hearing
and-
officers or no?
Yes, we have, now we have two.
He was appointed last summer.
Because I used it.
It was last summer that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have two hearing officers. That's.
I mean, unless you need, a specialist for police, but I'm not saying that,
Because I think he was reappointed last summer.
I remember it was last summer, July, August.
We still have it.
This is a non-police, yeah. We still have, it, but it's a non-police matter.
Yeah, this was a non-police matter. We felt that it would be better served to, because I was not, because I was, as the administrator, what they used to do here is on things that were not.
Which makes total sense. That's why I was just following up to see what the hearing officer is. But so I guess we're going to have two then. We'll have the police hearing officer, and then we'll have the rest of the employee.
Yeah, that's, I'm looking to do this because this is needed, because of what I've just explained, and you're saying you understand it.
You have 1 minute.
With regard to the Chief Devine and being the hearing officer, no one has unhired, unmade stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Hi, Katie Cassidy, 7 Stephen Terrace. A couple of questions. Last meeting, you spoke about the 6-year plan, and you asked if the council could get a copy of that. I wanted to see if the council did end up getting a copy of the 6-year renovation plan for the town, and also if the public could have access to that copy. I know that the mayor specifically mentioned a drawn-out cost-benefit analysis, and I know that you're going to go into it. My hand's killing me from the 2 presentations. I agree with Roy, that's too many for one night. Look forward to that, but I know, Council President, that you asked for a specific paper copy of cost-benefit analysis and everything like that, and I wanted to know if you had received that.
We'll provide that once everybody's done.
No, I wanted to know if you had received that.
No, I personally.
Oh, okay, because you had asked for it.
Yes, she told me she was going to provide.
Okay. I also, I am a little frustrated that everybody who had the presentations left before we got to ask our questions. I know that they said that 80% of the crime was from burglary, but I wanted to know what percent was jewelry versus other goods, because this looks like a great program to deal with jewelry theft, but if something else is being
It wouldn't
stolen.
just be jewelry. They also, he did mention like iPads and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Anything sold to some of these stores.
Oh, okay. All right, great, thank you.
I think they honed in for that because of the value of jewelry. As
Yes.
opposed to a blender or even an iPad. Some of the jewelry was
Jewelry's
high-end.
fast to grab.
Yeah, I know, my boyfriend got all his stuff stolen. And then I was wondering about the DDSS being responsible for the juvenile section of the police department as well. I wanted to know if there's currently a person who only does that, and will this person now be, the DDSS be doing the job of 2 people, dealing with what's in the school, but also the stuff that's going on in the juvenile department outside of the school. I'm going to keep going so that you guys can, I can get all my questions in. I understand that you want to introduce that whole plan today, but if you introduce it today and don't provide the resolution for us, then come next meeting when you do go to vote on it, the public won't have an opportunity then to be looking at said resolution. I think that might be a little bit of an issue in terms of transparency. If there was a way that I could be notified, or the public in general, maybe on the website, could be notified that the resolution was then available for pickup, so that we could come prepared to discuss this with you further in detail. I also wanted to know if you had spoken with the state legislatures about the Class 3 bill and your position on it, because it seems like you all are really for this, and I think that hearing from the mayor and the council of Parsippany that this is really important might expedite the process of this bill being passed. And I think that's it.
Great. Thank you as usual.
With
Holland, well,
okay.
Ellen, no, you go.
I'm going to just say, with regard to the resolution, the thing is, we did set up now our meetings that we have it on the 1st and the 3rd, so we have that week. Yes, and because, as the attorney has said, and the clerk, that will be provided to you and the council way prior to the meeting for not this coming Tuesday, but the next Tuesday. So that always affords us that to prevent that. Just because there's so much happening, now we have a way in which to make sure that gets to you. I see that Deputy Chief Pantina did stay, and I believe he can answer the question with regard to the fact that the juvenile, if you just want to, I think you can answer from there. That
Yeah, right now, we don't have
Yeah.
a supervisor in the juvenile bureau. We have no juvenile officers right now. We only have the SROs.
Okay.
So through attrition and over time, we didn't have the manpower. Now we're looking to build it back up. So this will put 4 officers in there. So in the summertime, they'll be handling juvenile issues. And we'll have the lieutenant, the DDS, or whatever we call it, to handle all juvenile functions.
And Katie, that's why I was stressing earlier, it's a very multi-purpose unit. And the unit still really is not where we need to be, our juvenile section. And that's why I stressed to the mayor also, there's a special enforcement unit section that really deals with narcotics that are going on in this town. It's a reality, but needs to deal with even juvenile matters and adult matters. So we still have a long road ahead of us to get our numbers up on this police department where we need to be. So hopefully we'll do great things for the community, but we're trying our best here dealing with a budget. Thank you.
One more comment, if I may. Your suggestion that we support the bill for the Class 3 is a good one. I'd like to recommend that the council adopt a resolution supporting whatever that bill number is and send it to our legislators.
I agree.
Yes.
We're all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
John, you can draft something up for us?
I'm writing it down as you
Please
speak.
do that.
Thank you, John.
Nick Komiak, Lake Hiawatha. In reference to this alleged imminent danger, I guess you can call it, I find it hard to believe that a local authority has to spin its top, and then in the age of austerity, once again, we're building up the police. It almost sounds like the police are taking over the schools, but if this, I believe the man said they found a diagram. It's like a fear tactic in Iraq. So we went from Iraq to Parsippany. I had no idea Parsippany schools were that bad. But these random shootings are people from our culture, from this gun culture, from this war culture, to this, every time you turn on the TV, somebody has a gun. But with all the money that we spend on defense, and there is now a Department of Homeland Security, so apparently all the armed forces, the CIA, the NSA, and now we have Homeland Security, the money should be coming from that source, not from the state of New Jersey or anything, or you should help set in motion that, like I said, if there is this great fear, this imminent danger that everyone seems to think is there, is lurking, could strike at any time, then that's a case for the federal government. And if you're going to go through with these things, then you have to go through with it all the way. You have to be reimbursed.
And I agree with those things we could consider, but I'll let you talk first.
Well, that's all I have to say, because I just find it as a fear tactic. We have to protect the children. I wouldn't want the police and, when I was a kid one time, my cousin Dottie's boyfriend was in the Army, and he brought me home a rifle grenade.
Okay.
So, hey.
That's a major violation.
But it said dummy right on it. It said dummy right on it.
Actually, you can't even have them nowadays.
I brought it to school.
Well,
Before I knew
you
it,
go out in handcuffs?
no, I didn't.
Okay, you're
And
lucky.
nowadays, I probably would. I
you
probably would.
Yes.
But the thing was, it was all handled in the right way. The Nutley police were there, the FBI were there, and the United States Army was there, all in a matter of an hour. Now, if it can happen then, it can't, if somebody decides that they're going to come into a public place with a gun, and like I said, we love guns in America, don't we? We love guns. And somebody decides that the stress, because we have safety and security, but we don't have a health plan, we don't have stabilized rents, we have all kinds of stress that they put on people, and then you wonder why people snap. But if somebody decides that they're going to snap, you're not going to be able to stop them. You're going to have one more story and one more police officer to hire. That's all you're going to do. So in an age of austerity, who benefits? The police, not the common citizen. That's all I have to say. I'm very disturbed by what I heard. And the jeweler's chart, yeah, it's a good idea, but they ought to do something like that with a cancer registry. You know, when people get cancer, and have a registry and find out where the cancer is coming from, and something for the environment. Is there a link to something? You know, something to help everybody, not just the cops and the robbers. Okay?
Let me respond back. You know I admire your dedication to the town.
I feel sorry for you.
No, I do. No, I do. But I will just tell you, I truly have a passion, and all the council members here, I'm not obviously blasting any of them in regards to their opinion, but we have 7,500 students that are in our school district, okay? About 4,500 of them get transported a day. We have 14 buildings. And I will tell you, if we probably did a survey or a poll to the family members that send their kids to school, Mr. Peluso was one of them right here, saying that when his little boy starts school, he really wants to see, obviously, somebody inside that school building. But we live in such times that are different. You put on the TV and you're horrified at what you see, what goes on in the schools. Listen, there's been past instances, and I don't want to say Dr. Seitz is not here, where students brought guns to school. So not only do you have to worry about, you know, what a kid might bring from home in school, or what a kid might do to another child, right, in school, and you hear some really bad things that take place in these schools. But you don't want somebody who's targeting our school, okay? We live in a very transient town, and it could be a number of things, okay? But you don't want to be there not prepared. And that's why, to me, as an elected official, and I'll take it on the chin, so if somebody's upset with me because I'm putting police officers inside the school, line up right here, and we'll discuss it. So I am very strong on this. I think this is something that's positive for the whole community. And then you have the school district, for once we're taking a bite out of them to pay for a portion of this. But now you're going to have organization, you're going to have intelligence that's going on, and you're going to be organized. So if something does happen, you're going to be prepared, and hopefully you are prepared. So I really strongly believe this is something good for the town. And thank you.
All right, it's just a mass phenomena, and the local governments should be reinforced or reimbursed by
listen,
by the higher culture it's causing all this.
And hopefully someday we'll get that aid from the state or the federal government, but we have an obligation, and if we could do something that's good for the public and for the children, I'm sure that the parents in this town will embrace us, what we're trying to do. And I tell you, when I was up in Randolph 2 weeks ago, you had all elected officials there. You had their chief of police briefing. And I actually made him jealous afterwards. I said, we already have this implemented. It's only to get better. He was only wishing he could put police officers in the school. So my point of the matter is, what we're doing is fundamentally and morally and ethically right for the town. And I feel strong on that.
It has to be cost effective.
Can I add something, Council President? I don't know if you're just looking at the media. Every other day, a police officer is being shot.
It's
every
terrible.
other day. Then you're hearing about with school in California, school in whatever. It's happening, and if you're not going to be proactive, like you said, Council President, then anybody can walk into those schools. Security guard without a gun, guess what? That'll be the first person to get shot. So, with that being said, I think we're being prudent. I think the council's being prudent. I think the administration is being prudent. And it's not just to be there. It's just to get to know the individuals, the kids. You know, I only could tell you a story about a resource officer from Denville. I mean, these kids need some sort of guidance. And I have to tell you, our police department, when it comes to community outreach and community service, they're the best.
Thank you, Mayor.
I want to add to that as well, Nick. Thank you for your comments. You're absolutely right. You know, there could be some funding out there from Homeland Security. I've been an advocate for hiring a grant writer that's a professional company to come in and seek out grants for us to find extra funding. I know the mayor has been against that proposal, but you know, I ask if you reconsider that, because if we had a professional grant writer, we could possibly find additional funding. And again,
I'll
reiterating
answer that
about protecting our children in school, I am all for the SRO officers, you know, working with a hybrid and a smart financial plan that's actually going to put protection in every school, every child be protected. That includes the 10 elementary schools, not just the high and the centrals.
I have to say something about the grant writer. First of all, I've met with that grant writer before. We can do exactly what that grant writer does. That grant writer gave us a list, and guess what? We can get most of those grants ourselves, so we don't need that grant writer. What we can do is maybe hire somebody to work for the township that's dedicated to the township, that we don't have to hand any dollars over in the first year, and then the next year it becomes more, and guess what? We get most of the grants ourselves. We have professionals, we have Ellen, we have Ann. We get most of the,
Remo gets a lot of them.
and Remo, D'Alessandra, he gets them from, we can do it ourselves. And if I didn't think we could, I would have hired them a long time ago when I met with them 4 or 5 years ago. There's other grant writers out there, that, in my opinion, that maybe one day in the future we can work with. But we can do it, and we've been doing it.
Mayor,
And we're not going to get congressional grants because we're a wealthy town.
Mayor, if I think Councilman Paluso's question was about to see if there was money available from Homeland
Yes.
Security. It's not. It's illegal for municipal governments to hire lobbyists. So that's
I did not
different
say
from a grant.
lobbyists.
Well,
Well,
if you
they
want
are
to know whether or
lobbyists.
not that's what lobbyists do is they look for money. Grant writers apply for grants that are available.
There was a grant from FEMA today for the
My
firemen, for
suggestion,
volunteers.
to you is if you want to know whether or not there is money, say from Homeland Security, the person to call is the congressman's district office,
Freelancer.
and they will let you know immediately. Rodney's office is very, very good. They'll let you know whether or not there are appropriations available for the things that you're looking at. Of course, Congress has done away with earmarks. They've significantly reduced any monies to municipality. I think virtually all monies from the federal government at this point are that reach the municipal level come through the state and through the counties. Very little, if any, direct funding from the federal government to municipalities anymore. But I think it would be more appropriate to contact the congressman's office.
Well, I'll
We
be
should
ma-
do that as well, definitely. I didn't hear that this evening, and that's what should be done. We should be seeking grants and opportunities so we can hire enough officers to protect all of our schools.
Well, they're not going to give us 500,000 higher officers, because the next year, where are you going to get the money from?
Okay. Anyone else from the public like to come forward before Ellen's going to explain that breakdown? Ellen, do you mind if we take like a 5-minute break?
No.
Real quick?
No, good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's
Oh, I might have it now. Here.
here, this and that.
Business administrator explaining some of those issues and details with concerning Fairview.
Okay, what I would like to do, Council President, if you don't mind, there are a lot of parts to this, not just the initial questions that the gentleman has put forth. We did research, Ann and I, and Ann of my office, to work out numbers and to give you the full picture and story that is not just about, it can't be just pigeonholed that they're getting $237,000 and another company just says, I can do it for $150. So before I get into any detail with that, I'd like to do an overview of what self-insurance has saved this municipality, comparing it to what Blue Cross and Blue Shield or the State Health Benefit Plan has provided over the same years. Ann has those numbers, and I'm going to turn it over to Ann to start, because this is going to be built. The last thing I will say with regard to process is that because this is a give and take and there's many elements to this, there'll be questions that'll be raised. You ask a question or you answer a question, another question may come up. We have a large pile of data that answers a lot of questions and a lot of the intricacies of the overall insurance and being self-insured, which we're coming to terms with not being one of my strong suits, in the sense of not having, with all my administrative skills, this was something that we took on. We had the assistant business administrator really was involved more with this than Ann or I, but she's not here, so we did take it on, and we did a lot of work to make sure we understood what it was about, where the numbers fall, what are the numbers, what are they made up of. So I will say, when Council President said we'll have something in writing, we will have, before the end of the week, everything in writing, what we hear, what we're answering questions, what we believe we've answered, what comes up in addition to some of the concerns after we make some statements. So there will be a product. I just spoke to Councilwoman Grignani, and she knows that based on the minutes that we had of a 2-hour meeting on finance, that in briefly reading it, she said we captured it, we were clear, the clarity. These are not simple issues, and it's not the only thing that Ann and I work on during the course of a week. So not to belabor that, and not to, but it's just, and again, we double check numbers. We have to get numbers from other sources. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ann.
Thank you. I'm pushing this press to talk. I hope you can hear me. We've been charged with the self-insurance, and all of the insurance now is under our watch. Roy, in all due respect, I do understand all these numbers that no one else quite does, because that's what I do. It is complicated. The way that the calculations are done for the self-insurance is based on actuarial numbers. All the database of about 1,200 individuals are involved in this. It's not just the employee. It's calculated on a database of employee, retirees, and their dependents, and ages, and health, etc. So it is a complicated number to get to. If we were to have stayed with the state health benefits, which I know myself, having experience in the state health benefits, you have no choice but to pay their increases. It's basically a self-insurance, big self-insurance, or a big JIF, to be honest. And you are subject to whatever's going on with the state. The state wants you to be part of that, okay? We are not. And we have saved, over the last 5 years, almost $4 million not being in the state health benefits, but being self-insured. Some of the advantages, yes, IDA does handle it, and they do a great job. There is some issues there, here and there, and what Fairview does is make sure that IDA is doing part of their job. With that being said, our experience using the wellness people that we have has made us a healthy township. And what does that mean? We are saving money and making sure that our people are healthy. What happens with that? We get the advantage to that. We get the advantage of good experience, and therefore being able to save for a rainy day. There have been some issues that the rainy day money or the reserve is not as high as maybe we would like to, and Ellen will talk to that in a minute, but it is very healthy and up there. We plan on getting a little more on the reserve to make sure that we are prepared in case we decide to come out of self-insurance. So yeah, I do know these numbers, okay? We do, there is expected plan costs, and there is the maximum plan cost. There is also a stop loss. So if someone is very ill and they go above 125,000, that's when that stop loss number kicks in. We do budget to the maximum so that we do build a reserve. Okay, so I welcome any questions regarding the health plan at any time, because I believe that based on our research and that I could probably answer most of your questions. I'm going to turn this over to Ellen for the detail on what went on in 2015 and what is going to happen in 2016.
One of the things we want to address is if we want to start and then work back. What are, to your point, which are the medical and then the prescription, what are the costs? Your numbers are correct in the sense that we have membership of a number of that we're paying, the 514 times the $38.50, which is per employee per month, coming to approximately $237,468. But you have to remember what Ann just said, because we're going to talk a little bit about it, but because of the CARE Act, the CARE Act and what we're held responsible. 514 is not the amount of people we're dealing with. We're dealing with 1,200 people because we have an obligation. we're paying that amount of money, but we're paying it on the 514 that are here. But they have dependents. There are retirees. So the moving elements of this and the responsibility, and to have the documentation and the numbers. Let me jump to the end of talking about what we're mandated to do. The numbers are going to fail me. What is it? What we need for the Affordable Care Act. There's Affordable Care Act, and there's. Okay, she'll talk a little bit about the forms, but I just want to say that she's going to go through the process of what that entailed. But we learned more as we were going through the Affordable Care Act and calling upon IDA to give us the body of the personnel, the people that are made up of, composed of our Parsippany, and it's over, like I said, it's over 1,200 folks, and so. Yeah, I know, belly buttons, as she says. Okay, so that number is correct. Then, just to be for transparency, and again, all of this will be documented and have a flow, but the prescription is approximately 2%, at 2%, which comes to $83,000. So a number that we're paying is, if you add the 237 and the 83, around $320,000. Now, you stated to me when we were just talking, and I was trying to express the largesse of what needs to be explained and the comprehension of all these moving numbers. And I say, maybe I humbly said, I'm a quick study, though. I will say that, someone said they could do it for 150. That's all well and good. Yeah, I could do it for 140. No, I couldn't, but I could say it. So I just say you got to be cautious with numbers, because one of the gentlemen who was here when I was here and you were here, and you heard them say I could do it for 150, also said that the going rate was 3.5%. The number that Fairview is charging is 1.9%, not 3.5%. So it is under the rate of what is 3%. Sorry, 3%. What is the rate? What is the rate that would be permissible under the insurance commissions? So anyway, that being said, so just to talk about the numbers, but we need to talk about the fact that when Ann talks about the surplus and the reserve, I keep calling it surplus, the reserve. In our discussion in the finance meeting, we talked about a number in the reserve at one point, at the point where Ann had given the current number. The current fund number is approximately $2,250,000, $2,005,000. That was the current number. Because there is such need to make sure you go back and you research and you take a look at what your numbers are, we then said we better also make sure that the number that we give is the full number. So the utilities have $910,000. So the good news is, what our auditor said in the finance meeting was you need between 15 and 25% in reserve to cover that rainy day, that bad loss, that horrible situation where someone goes through a catastrophic illness. Here we were thinking we had to say $2,500,000. What we have really is $3,162,000, which is phenomenal, showing that we are taking a look at what is required. 15 to 25% would have been $2.8 million. What we have right now, even with giving back some, not giving back, but maintaining our cost to our employees because of such a good year last year, and the second thing of in 15, and the second thing of one of the elements we had to pay for a serious condition, which we did have to take out of reserve. That being said, we're still at $3,162,000. Okay, so what does it mean? The numbers that Roy was saying. What does it mean to say? What is again? These numbers will be provided to the council, but and to the public. there is a number that's called the maximum cost. This comes from IDA, which incorporates fair review. You have to know about this to order to move forward to see what the value is and the cost of doing business. This maximum cost is $11,638,000, $559, but $11,640,000, rounded numbers. We are going to budget that amount of money. We are going to budget the full $11 million. Then they give you from actuaries, and these are. Is someone saying something? Okay. In actuaries, there's two other numbers you have to consider. Expected cost and expected claims. The expected cost would be $9,600,000, and the expected claims, thinking, again, an actuarial number, $8,132,000. So, by telling you what the claims might be, or the claims and then the expected cost, the higher number, it does allow flexibility to incorporate the fact that we're going to budget the full $11,600,000 in our fund, because hopefully we have a good year, but if we have some problems or issues that there is some catastrophic illness, we're covered. But hopefully what this will do is turn around within the next couple of years that our reserve will be to the tune of we're not where it would be the good world of the our auditor saying, the 15 to 25% of that, $3 million to $2,800. We want to make sure we have a number somewhere to the tune of $4 billion to $4.5 million, so that if in fact the numbers from the state health benefit are better, we would have the ability to move away and make sure that the cost, because remember, these are costs that go on year after year after year. Okay, that's just to kind of just give you some background into the costs. And again, this will all be written out in a better flow, perhaps. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'll just finish this up. The other thing is, we talk about the fact that, okay, this is what I want to talk to. The questions would arise with what is the makeup of the people that utilize the insurance? Family, the premiums, families, the mother, child, or husband and wife, and then single. And then on the back of this sheet that I'm going to be providing to the council and to the public is the monies that we as municipal folks, based on the fact the new changes, coming out of the governor's office, that there's percentages here. Those that make, those that make a higher salary are paying a 35% of their premium, and that's also an important number. People want to know what you're paying through your taxes to cover us. Well, it might not be, when you look at it, but we need to tell the number of what our people are putting out, and it's $1,290,000 we're collecting from our employees. And I will say the fact that, remember, when we negotiated with the police department, they were under the old rule that they only had to pay the 1.5% of salary, which was far lower than paying those different fields that go up. They'll be paying in the third route. But what we negotiated was not that they paid at the first level, but that they paid at the second level, which was where the funding was. So this it has been greatly increased by the number of them paying towards the premium. But I also want to say, because we talked about negotiating with our blue-collar workers, yes, we did good by them with the salaries, but one of the things that it's all well and good it was a two-way street in that negotiations, because people say, what can the employees contribute and how can we lower the costs? Well, you need to know that we have contracts that we need to go by, and the rule is
equal or better than, what is it, but we're self-insured, so we still are under the requirements of the state. However, I want to add that we did remove from the blue collars, because they still had it in their contract, I negotiated out the traditional plan so that we also don't get penalized because of the Cadillac plan under Obama. So anyway, one of the other things that was still in that agreement, that I would not sign that contract, would not allow the mayor or the council to approve that contract, because in that, they still stated that that the blue collar of attuned to about 125 individuals were only, by what was written in the contract, was 1.5% of that premium, which is less than going to the full level of the level 4, which is the max at 35% of premium. So what I'm saying with that is that was removed from it. So there's a lot of things where people are trying to work with us, work with the numbers. Now, what does that have to do with Fairview? I'm going to turn it over to Ann to talk about some of the additional information with regard to that, and we will provide some analysis, further analysis of what it is for 150,000 and what it is for the reality of a real number that is at 1.9%, not 3% or 3.5% of what they could charge under the insurance.
I'm holding the button for her.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Can you hear me?
I'll hold it.
She's holding the button for me now. Not only do we have to deal with insurance, Fairview and IDA have helped us out with the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is a mystery for everyone, but I'll tell you a little bit about it briefly. Last year, the Finance Department took an active role in the task actually of interpreting the requirements for the Affordable Care Act reporting. Okay, the township is considered a large employer, so this was the first year that we had to do the reporting and prepare the data and file to the IRS 2 forms, 1095C and 1094C. I think some of you may have already gotten some of those forms. One of them goes to you, and one of them goes to the IRS. After much research, we've decided to hire our payroll provider, Paychecks, to prepare the form. I contacted attorneys, I contacted professionals, I contacted accountants, and it all comes down to get your payroll company. Being self-insured, it's not only the employees that have to get this form, it's every single person on the plan. That's 1,200 people. So this task was unbelievable. You have to have their social security number, you have to have their birth date, you have to have their addresses, phone number, everything. So how do we do that? We were able, as a team, the Finance Department, the administration, Fairview, and IDA, to put together this database. And long story short, not only did we have to give them the benefit, the minimum benefit, the contribution amount by person, and the makeup of all, and of course their data, social security numbers included, all had to be uploaded onto Paychecks. Now that we are still in this, trying to get this done. Of course, it's a mystery as to exactly how this is going to work, because every municipality is in the same boat here. We will be done by the end of the month. There was an extension automatic. We applied for the extension for March 31st. But the IRS automatically gave us the extension. There is steep penalties. However, the IRS has told us that as long as you make your best, put your best foot forward and get those filed, there will be no penalty. I have to say that as a team, we will get this done. But if it wasn't for IDA and Fairview, I have no idea how we would have done this, to get 1,200 people on a database and get these forms out. It's a monumental task. So that's one of the things that they did for us, and it's still still going, actually.
I mean,
it's part of the fee, by the way.
It was part of it. The thing is,
what's the bottom line? 238, 238, $237,000, $150,000? I don't know how to answer that question. All I know is that how I mean that is rhetorical. I don't know how to answer that question. You have to know that the deputy chief talked about, or the lieutenant talked about the intrinsic value, or the intangible, the intangible. Ann is touching base on that. If it wasn't for the input from both Fairview and IDA, I don't know how all that data would have been captured, but they worked hard on it to make sure that we did get it, so we were in compliance, or now very close to getting all those forms out to the individuals so they can file their income tax. The other thing I want to say, and I am going to turn it over to the mayor, is that one of the things that was of concern or issue was our people, and were they getting the attention to detail. We have the wellness coach, but what we also had is a woman, we just call her Jackie, and Jackie did do what I had turned to the council president and said that we were going to have, and I think I provided the reports to the council and to the mayor, which was that that individual has gone to the locations to make sure that they're getting the coverage that that we are paying for, that they're getting the attention, that the bills are being paid and addressed, or any other questions that they had. And she went to every location and dealt with quite a number of people, some just wanting to meet her and be ready in case they did have an issue, but they're very attentive to our needs and to our people. I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. There's always room for, perhaps having a discussion and a dialogue, but when you're talking about the difference of $100,000, but someone is saving you, Ann was talking about $4 million. If we went back to the beginning of when we were self-insured and utilizing Fairview, it's over $5 million. $5.2 million was saved. So how do you put a quantity on that? Perhaps would the $150,000 individual company save all that money? These are heady. I know. I'm sorry. I know I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to everybody, and I don't mean to. I'm not putting anybody on the spot. I'm just saying, all this information doesn't just happen. We drilled down. We made sure. We double checked. But I'm going to turn it over to the mayor.
Ellen, you pretty much explained it all with regards to the loyalty, the dedication we get from IDA and we get from Fairview Insurance. They work 24/7. No matter what we need from them, we get it. And I'm going to tell you about the wellness coach because it's important. When I became the mayor, a year later, we had the first I'd say high loss ratio. No one wanted to even bid on the township. Okay, well they recommended the wellness coach. 3 other towns did it that they had, and it was a home run. From that point on, our premiums have not escalated that way. They've come down. Okay, that's through their hard work. They procure the process. I don't remember who said they could do it for $150,000. Everybody could always do it cheaper until they sit in the chair, and that's a fact. I mean, Fairview gives us, and so does IDA, the attention that we need. Now, we could talk about the Affordable Care Act. They came to our aid because that could become a very sticky situation. Okay, within 2 hours, it was settled. It was done. We don't want to be penalized by the IRS. First of all, there's a lot more coming down with this Affordable Care Act that all municipalities are going to have to worry about in the future unless it gets repealed. If it doesn't get repealed, I got some bad news for the taxpayers. That's all I can tell you. Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, the Affordable Care Act, is a mess. Okay? And you need individuals like Fairview Insurance, like IDA, like we have, that are dedicated to this township, that have been working here, working on our policies since 2007. And from 2007 on, like Ellen said, they saved us approximately $5.2 million in premiums. Everybody, you hear, we should go with the state health benefit plan. No way. It was increasing every year. And once you're in it, it's like you said, it's hard to get out of.
I know.
So I don't know how much more to go on about this, but the fact is that, I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate you coming up here and your concern. But the fact is, I'm putting Fairview. Council's going to vote either yes or no, but I'm putting them through. I'm going to put them on.
One of the things, just to say, how, this doesn't even sound like it's working. Lee, can you hear me?
Test.
All right, here we go. One of the things, just another aside, while we worked on this, we were able to give our folks, one of the questions is, what is the makeup? Basically, as I said, it's the medical and it's the prescription. Dental, there was no cost and no increase, but even though we increased to instead of giving $1,500 to the employees, we were able to, in the union contract, we afforded them a $2,000. So for we got $500 more to our employees to take care of their dental care. If you don't think and follow the line of what's the sense. You have an employee that has an abscessed tooth. You don't have an employee. You have someone that needs dental care. We're working on that. That's why we do have dental. We have a small vision plan. That again, it's a pittance of a number that we pay. And again, it was a zero cost factor with dental. So I don't know what to say. I just can say there's many other elements that the reason why we. Would like to stay with Fairview. We believe they've been there for us, an active partner. Stood up, spent many hours to get us other ways in which to reduce the exposure. And again, once we perhaps, I'm calling it a moratorium as far as no utilization on a good year, we want to build up those reserves and in case of that rainy day. But I think we're doing it with a good partner. That's what I can say. And again, it's very hard to discuss 237 and 150 and say what makes up that. And again, the mayor said it, until somebody's sitting there, oh yeah, we'll do this, but we're going to do this, we need to get this for that, and what, so it's not this is not a yes or no answer. It's not check off the box, more to follow, because we are going to take a look. I want to break down some of this stuff and see if I can get from them a little bit more detailed, and some of the documents are with the former assistant administrator, so we can pull out what was contained in theirs and the other elements that are contained in. We just ran out of time for this evening.
I'd just like to add one other thing about audit.
You're not tired yet?
No, I'm just getting started. I've been working on this thing.
We're going to put you on a timer for 2 minutes.
When you're here Saturday, Sunday, every day, trying to get this to work for you, to make sure you understand it, I just have one small thing to say.
Okay, very small.
I promise, all right? It's about the audit, and it's about really watching the numbers. I mean, yes, there may not be a total oversight or whatever, but let me say, we did have that SOC report, which is where they go in and they audit. They audit to make sure that this third-party administrator is paying the bills for us. I mean, that's a scary thing. And we did have that audit, and we will continue to have that audit on an annual basis. And then they are going to audit their third party. And it continues, and that's how we protect our money and make sure everything is being done compliant. It's actually more compliant than Blue Cross Blue Shield. I just want to make that point. Plus, the auditors are going to come in. They're going to be looking at those reserves and auditing every dollar that went out of here. So I just want to say that it's not just a fly-by-night amount of money that doesn't get watched like a hawk, believe me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Here's what I would like you to do, if possible, Ellen. We have to go into detail. You took copious notes there.
Yes.
You obviously relayed all this information out to the public here. What I would like, so we don't have to go into major discussion again.
No.
If you could put this in some format
That's what
order.
I'm saying. Yeah, right.
Send it to all the council
Yes.
members. If any of the council members here have any question, concerns,
They
it
will have
all
it
should be
before-
addressed
they'll have it on
prior.
Friday.
Yeah, prior to the council meeting. So like the mayor said, he puts it up for vote, and we vote. So we don't need to go into discussion back and forth. We're all adults here. We have plenty of time, 2+ weeks to discuss it with Ellen. And if anybody has any question, concerns about it, they really shouldn't be bringing it up during the council meeting. It should be done beforehand.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I thank you for that. And again, I know it was sporadic, but the elements that are made up of this, it's not a straight line.
And I know I was asking you a lot of questions, and obviously you answered a lot of them too, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ann, you're the best. You were just hanging in there. Thank you. All right, so we did answer that, obviously, information to the public. What I'd like to do now is entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Grignani.
Second.
That motion was made by Mrs. Grignani, and that was seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Paluso?
Yes.
Mr. Valori?
Yes. Okay, we'll get through the rest of this in hopefully in a timely manner. Dealing with ordinances, status of adopted ordinances. Ordinance number 2016:01 was adopted on February 16, 2016. Mayor's action was done on February 18, 2016. Effective date, March 9, 2016. The second reading of all our public hearing ordinances are from 2016:02, 03, 04, 05. Anybody have any question or concerns? Okay, we're going to move on to the introduction. Take a few moments to look over that. If you have any issues about the introduction, this is already addressed. Okay, there's none. Non-consent agenda, resolutions, none.
Well, you're going to have
Nope.
one. You're going to have one.
Okay.
We're going to place the proposal.
Oh.
The SRO proposal.
Yes, yes, thank you. My endurance is running out up here, okay?
Council President, I'd like
Yes.
to have under resolutions consent agenda number 2 and 14 removed and put on non-consent.
Okay. 2 and 14, you want pulled and put on non-consent?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
What's two?
2 and 14. Anybody have any other questions about the rest of the resolutions there that will be voted on next council meeting? Okay, so 2 and 14 will be pulled. Applications, resolution of Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills authorizing 2016 renewal of licenses, amusement games, entertainment, taxi limo, tourist accommodations, and truck terminal. 2, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills approving and authorizing a club liquor license for the licensing term March 1st, 2016 through March 28, 2017.
Engineering status report for March 2016, Manor Lake Dam. Our design professionals are finalizing the plan revisions and additional calculations required by the NJDEP. The requested information will be resubmitted to the NJDEP at the end of the month. No council action is required. FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Project, elevation work on phases 4, 5, and 6 is still on hold until the weather improves. The acquisition of the 2 properties funded by FEMA and by Morris County Flood Mitigation Grant is progressing. No action required by the council. Whippany River Desnagging Grant. This project is funded by the NJDEP grant for the removal of fallen trees and debris in the Whippany River from Florham Park to Parsippany. The contractors started the project in Florham Park and is progressing downstream. No council action required. Lower Rockaway River Desnagging Grant. This is another project funded by the NJDEP grant for the removal of fallen trees and debris in the Rockaway River from Boonton to confluence of the Passaic River. Bid documented, will be advertised in March for spring, summer project. No